Chapter 330. Luo Nan understood tacitly when he saw Worker Zhai cast a gaze at him. Let me try. Hey. I'm using a penetrating strength. But Crag Burst didn't let go. He was a bit unconvinced, but he was still wary on a deeper level. You tell me first. Let's not talk about Nanster. I don't seem to be much worse than Shuelei. If he can activate the effects, why can't I? Worker Zhai responded warmly, I'm thinking about it. There are 2 reasons. First, my amplification device is more suited to mental ability users. You are a typical fleshly body enhanced. Your interference direction is different. Second, this miniature rhombohedron is perhaps more like our wristbands. Daily usage is 1 layer, developer options are another layer. Crag Burst rubbed his big bald head. He felt that what Worker Zhai said made some sense. He cast his gaze at Luo Nan, who nodded. Worker Zhai's operation just now was extremely precise and meticulous. His mental strength borrowed the minute electric current of the device to realize the amplification of interference on the material plane. But when it came to you, Brother Crag Burst, the amplification device's effects were completely destroyed. So it's like this. Crag Burst nodded. When he looked at Worker Zhai, his gaze was a bit different. Is it electron affinity? This ability is quite good. It's especially suited for maintenance. It's like adding wings to a tiger. Which place does it need electricity nowadays? Worker Zhai laughed involuntarily. It's not suited. It's necessary. I'm a mental ability user. If I can't realize electron affinity, then further research would be wishful thinking. As he spoke, he cast his gaze at Luo Nan. His thoughts were rather complicated. I don't even dare to think about Mr. Luo's eyesight. We amateurs who haven't entered the door are truly left in the dust when compared to the awakened. Well, Nanster is a special case. As Crag Burst spoke, he made room for Luo Nan. He added, I feel like I've seen this toy somewhere before. Luo Nan didn't speak. He took a step forward and grasped the metal rod. When Crag Burst let go, the tentacles of the miniature rhombohedron retracted. Luo Nan didn't release his power in time. He didn't make any further movements until the tentacles were completely retracted. What's wrong? Crag Burst didn't understand. Probably just observing. Worker Zhai was a precision-oriented mentally enhanced. Even though he was unable to observe Luo Nan's movements on the mental plane, he was able to guess the corresponding train of thought. Crag Burst said, oh. He felt a bit embarrassed for being so suspicious of Worker Zhai just now. He pressed down on his earlobe and made a gesture for members of the society, let's add each other as friends. Worker Zhai smiled bitterly and waved his hand. I'm sorry, I can't. You don't have an ID on the psychic wave network? There's one, but it's hard to use. Worker Zhai shook his head again. I do have some mental strength, but it's not enough to interfere with reality at any time. That's why I've only been able to wander around the periphery of the circle these past few years, relying on my craftsmanship to make a living. Fortunately, Papercut took care of me and often introduced me to some work. There was no doubt that Luo Nan had been introduced in this manner. Crag Burst said in surprise, it can't be that bad. I can see that your interference force is on point. That's in this studio. Outside of here, I'm no different from an ordinary person. Worker Zhai glanced at Luo Nan. He saw that Luo Nan still hadn't made a move, so he turned his head back and said, Papercut has put in quite a bit of effort. He's tried to help me with the awakening ritual, but I'm limited by my talent. I've only gained a bit of an affinity with electrons over the past 5 years. I'm still far from being able to do anything else. I need to rely on a hearing aid in order to use the Hexier and access the psychic wave network. Right now, I've only reached the 2nd level. I can only watch television, listen to the radio, and so on. I have no way of interacting with others. A hearing aid. Did you design it yourself? Cragburst was able to understand that this was a type of amplification device. He was a bit curious. The people of the society, as long as they're involved in mechanical and electronic design, amplification devices have always been a hot topic. The larger the measurement, the better. You're talking about the four-dimensional measurement. Worker Zhai was a technician. He always paid attention to similar theories. Right when he was about to discuss a thing or two with Cragburst, Luo Nan suddenly let out a long breath. His palm left the metal rod. The miniature rhombohedron was still in its initial state within the device's chamber. Compared to Worker Zhai and Cragburst's progress, it was a complete and utter regression. Shuelei, who was watching from afar, didn't participate in the conversation between Cragburst and Worker Zhai. He focused on observing Luo Nan's methods from beginning to end. But the more he watched, the more disappointed he became. Nanster, is it no good? I want to take it out and give it a try. Luo Nan turned his head to look at Worker Zhai. This device won't be of much help to me. The direction of its amplification is mainly in strength. I feel that it would be better to go a bit deeper. Depth, strength, sensitivity, and affinity. These were the four-dimensional measurement that Worker Zhai had just mentioned. They were the four basic measurement standards that the society used for mental strength. There wasn't any particularly rigorous logic or scientific basis in these measurements. They were mainly established by common usage, reflecting the fuzziness of the research of supernatural powers in the current era. Worker Zhai didn't have any objections. My specialty is in electronic equipment and mechanical design. I'm considering the internal structure of this thing. As for the mental domain, you have the final say. He opened the device chamber as he spoke, and the miniature rhombohedron was mounted on the support. It moved out and stopped at the outer edge of the workbench. Luo Nan gave it a few more glances and asked, Worker Zhai, you just said that just the kinetic energy conversion structure isn't enough. You mean? From the situations shown in the video, there are at least two structures that aren't shown, maglev and energy storage. Also, I want to know where the power components are located. Worker Zhai casually drew several structural sketches on the hologram, corresponding to the kinetic energy conversion structure. From a conventional train of thought, the miniature rhombohedron is more like an integrated circuit. It's not a problem to use it in electronic equipment, but what kind of work is needed to drive the several 100-kilogram Tai Chi ball? Those tentacles are a good choice. It's fine as long as the transmission and work parts are combined together. But I haven't discovered the corresponding structural design. Luo Nan had a general understanding. What Worker Zhai means is that there should be more tentacles to form more structures. Worker Zhai used an electronic pen to tap the hologram. Dynamic, precise, and sufficiently firm. Cragburst listened to them speak, and a certain train of thought from before resurfaced. It became clearer and clearer, separated only by a thin layer of paper. He rubbed his forehead forcefully. Tentacles. Structure. Precision. Ha! What's that again? Luo Nan laughed and asked, in other words, the miniature rhombohedron driving the Tai Chi ball is very likely to be accomplished through those tentacles. Worker Zhai nodded, and Cragburst clapped his hands forcefully. Holy crap! The dynamo core. Luo Nan didn't say anything more. He took a deep breath, and his towering iceberg-like mental strength resonated with the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Incorporeal lightning crackled and scuttled, forming a seemingly substantial bolt of lightning in the depths of the cracks in his eyes. The miniature rhombohedron inexplicably trembled at the focus of his gaze. This object couldn't compare to the external neuron. It couldn't compare to Jack's Deep Sea Type 4, but the sparkle on the mental plane and the corresponding spark of lightning in Luo Nan's eyes truly belonged to the dynamo core. Chapter 332. 6 tentacles extended out from the miniature rhombohedron within the workshop, followed by a second layer. This time, the tentacles were even more slender. There were 6 main trunks and 30 secondary branches. The scale was already far above the core rhombohedron. Several dozen tentacles undulated and fluttered. If one did not have a predetermined view, it was likely that they would have overlooked the existence of the rhombohedron. The current situation was no different from the situation in the device chamber. At most, the tentacles extended a bit more. It was just that the 3 people in the workshop were much more serious than before. Luo Nan squinted his eyes, adjusting the glow of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Crag Burst shifted his feet lightly to adjust the angle of the heart lantern. As for Worker Zhai, he brought a portable microscope with him. He switched lenses from time to time, searching for a suitable focal length. Are there any changes? Shuai Lei was limited by his long-range view. He was unable to distinguish the details clearly. He blinked a dozen times, but he was unable to see anything. In the end, Worker Zhai gave a response. He said, "Wait a moment." He took a piece of tin foil from the workbench and rolled it into a strip. He carefully extended it over, using the tip to streak across the empty region of the tentacle structure. The tip of the tin foil was soon obstructed, and it bent a bit. Under the illumination of the workshop's lights, a thin stream of light streaked across the empty region. It was unremarkable, but it was still captured by the others. There's something. Shuai Lei immediately understood. It was very likely that there was an even finer structure in the empty region of the tentacle structure. However, its composition had already surpassed the limits of what the naked eye could see. Worker Zhai slowly pulled back the tin foil, but the tip of the tin foil inexplicably tore as soon as he pulled back his elbow. It was as if an invisible blade had sliced through it. The front half of the tin foil first broke off, and then it shattered. During this period, it could be seen that the 36 tentacles didn't have any obvious changes. Instead, a subtle trembling sound rang out in the workshop. The source was from the tentacle structure. Careful. Careful. Crag Burst pressed down with his hands, indicating for Worker Zhai to take it gently. Worker Zhai thought for a moment and simply flicked the second half of the tin foil toward the top of the tentacle structure, letting it fall freely. As expected, the tin foil tumbled a few times in midair. Before it could make contact with any of the visible tentacles, it was crushed into powder by the invisible strangulation. The sound of breathing had disappeared from the workshop, and the trembling sound of the tentacle structure grew clearer. Worker Zhai turned to look at Luo Nan. Luo Nan's gaze still lingered on the rhombohedron. Worker Zhai spoke softly, "Did you see it?" Crag Burst curled his lips, "You're just showing off your superior spirit, dog die." Beside him, Worker Zhai smiled bitterly. From this point of view, he, an unawakened spiritually enhanced individual, was worse than a dog. Fortunately, after choosing the engineering specialization route, he could rely on the assistance of equipment, and he could do more. A series of cracking sounds rang out from beneath the workbench. A circle of white boards rose up in a slanted manner, looking like a coarse calyx. The tentacle structure was half enclosed within, forcing Luo Nan and Crag Burst to retreat. Several spotlights lit up above, adjusting their angles so that the light could penetrate the visible and invisible tentacle structure and cast a shadow on the whiteboard. F*CK me. Crag Burst was caught off guard. On the snow-white board, there seemed to be thousands of snakes wriggling, constantly changing according to the angle of the light. They could see clearly now. Through the special light projection, the 36 strands, which were thinner than strands of hair, became thumb-thick on the board. And between them, a densely packed, shadow spider web was woven. Thus, everyone confirmed that there was a layer of even finer strands that couldn't be seen with the naked eye between the 2 layers of 36 strands. The strands were densely woven like a web, forming an even more complex and precise structure. Worker Zhai operated the computer and cut the shadow spider web from multiple angles together. It didn't take long for a relatively complete 3D structure to be formed. It appeared on the workbench in the form of a projection. Luo Nan's gaze went back and forth between the real thing and the 3D projection. Cragburst couldn't see through it, so he simply asked, "How many strands are there in total?" The current count is 1,276 strands. Worker Zhai swept his eyes over the data and then sighed, "The structure just now needs to be completely replaced. There's also the material analysis. The resources allocated to me may not be enough. They may not be suitable either." Cragburst didn't understand. What? There's a supercomputer here in the Electronic City. Its name is Crossover. With my privileges, I can request a portion of the resources. Actually, I'm using it right now. Its main purpose is to analyze the dynamic structure. Worker Zhai pointed at the holographic screen. Page after page of diagrams flashed by at high speed. They were all structural diagrams extracted from the shadow spider web that had just been confirmed. Over 1,000 diagrams had flashed by in the time Worker Zhai spoke. "It looks pretty fast, huh? You can't provide effective parameters, so you can only rely on the method of exhaustion. It's meaningless. This is because it's impossible for the computer to understand how a glass-like object can split into over 1,000 tentacles of varying thicknesses, far surpassing the size of its storage capacity. These tentacles are in a state when they're coiled up, and how they function when they're released." Worker Zhai sighed when he spoke to this point, especially when the stimulating factor involves the mental plane. If this is the case, the mainstream engineering of humanity isn't ready yet. I'm powerless to do anything for the time being. Shuai let out a sigh, a little disappointed. Cragburst shook his big bald head and sighed along with Worker Zhai. However, his mentality was more stable than everyone else's. He turned to look at Luo Nan. "It's a big discovery. What do you think? Should we transfer it to the society to take a look?" Luo Nan didn't respond immediately. He just asked Worker Zhai, "Can I put it away now?" Worker Zhai was actually a bit reluctant, but he couldn't find a reason to refuse. He just nodded with a bitter smile. Luo Nan closed his eyes slightly, isolating the effects of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. The 3 layers of over 1,000 tentacles, whether they were tangible or intangible, all retracted back. The volume of the miniature rhombohedron didn't show any obvious changes. Worker Zhai couldn't be bothered to tidy up his workbench. He operated the portable microscope with one hand and moved closer to the miniature rhombohedron. He clicked his tongue in wonder. Luo Nan moved to the side, and Cragburst understood. The two walked to the side and conversed in low voices. "What's the difference between Jack's Deep Sea Type 4 and this one? Is it also a 3-layer structure that extends little by little?" 3 layers. I don't understand this. I only skimmed through the report. Cragburst did his best to recall, but he was unable to grasp the gist of it. In the end, he simply said, "Just contact the branch's laboratory. You're one of the parties involved, and your operation score is near the top. You certainly have the right to access and consult. It's fine as long as you don't leak it." Hee, that's how it is. Not many people cared in the past. Yeah. Not many people cared. Luo Nan curled his lips. Cragburst was a bit embarrassed. Leaking on all sides was a tradition of the society, and Luo Nan was the newest victim of this tradition. As such, he couldn't help but be a bit hesitant. Let the branch's laboratory handle this. You'll certainly need to explain the ins and outs of this matter. Is that okay? Leicester, what's your opinion? Luo Nan looked at Shuai. Shuai was a bit hesitant. Shuai didn't understand the significance of the dynamo core, but he could see that this toy was far from simple. He didn't expect that repairing the device would cause complications, and that the implications weren't small. Don't think too much about it. The prophet is the gym master. Listen to his opinion. Luo Nan saw that Shuelei was in a difficult position, so he simply declared, "This is the gym master's personal property. We stole it from the Daguan. Even if we did it out of good intentions, we would leak our privacy. How would we explain this to the gym master later?" Shuelei let out a breath of relief and nodded over and over. Luo Nan looked at Crag Burst and Worker Zhai. Crag Burst made a zipping motion with his mouth, while Worker Zhai had just recovered from his research state. He laughed and said, "Protecting the privacy of our customers is a basic principle of technicians." "Then that's good." Luo Nan nodded to express his thanks. Shuelei asked again, "Should I tell the gym master now?" Luo Nan hesitated for a moment. His gaze cast toward the miniature rhombohedron, and then he turned to look at the three-dimensional projection and the simplified diagram that appeared on the holographic screen. A long time passed before he opened his mouth, but he gave an irrelevant answer. "This diagram. I don't understand it." "Huh?" The other three were a bit stupefied. Luo Nan took a step forward and swiped his hand across the holographic screen, looking at the simplified diagram that had already been swept past. Under the deduction of the allocated supercomputer resources, the structural diagram of the dynamo core appeared endlessly and was revised. From a layman's point of view, it was concise, but the corresponding professional symbols were like heavenly books. It was hard to understand. He originally wanted to use his habitual thinking methods of coupling, configuration, and so on to deconstruct it. But a few thoughts ran through his mind, and he gave up for now. He turned his head and asked, "Worker Zhai, these diagrams are too professional. Can you teach me a bit?" "Which parts?" "All of them." Worker Zhai was a bit startled, but he soon laughed. "It's a long story." The frequency at which Luo Nan's fingers swiped was far from being able to keep up with the speed of the supercomputer's analysis. It didn't take long for Luo Nan to give up, allowing the simple diagrams to sweep past. But the thoughts that popped up before became clearer and more stable. "I want to learn from the beginning. I've always been mediocre in physics. I don't even need to talk about electronic engineering and mechanical design. It would naturally be best if I could make up for it." Worker Zhai looked a few more times, and he suddenly realized that the society member before him, who had already reached a higher level, was still a student. He skimmed over the relevant information. His age of 16 was very eye-catching. "What year are you in high school this year?" "First year." "You're interested in engineering?" "It's useful." Luo Nan was very frank. He started from a completely practical point of view. "I want to understand these structural diagrams. I need to have a concept at the very least." Worker Zhai shook his head and emphasized once more, "I can't do it in a short amount of time." On the other side, Crag Burst had already been tripped by Luo Nan's train of thought. He simply rolled his eyes. "Weren't we discussing confidentiality issues? You even said that you wanted to confess to that gym master Xiao and be lenient. After it's fixed." Luo Nan cut off Crag Burst's words and looked at Shuelei. "The gym master has a strange temper. I can't predict what kind of reaction he will have. If I ask him in a muddle-headed manner, we might not be able to talk. Leister, let's keep this a secret for now. Wait for me to figure out the reasoning behind this, then we'll return it to its owner, okay?" Okay. Shuelei was actually stupefied, especially when he looked directly into Luo Nan's eyes. Even though Luo Nan's eyes were separated by a layer of contact lenses, and even though the photoelectric signal was transmitted and restored, Luo Nan's gaze was still blazing to the point of terror. He had never seen Luo Nan like this in his memories. Wait a minute. Crag Burst raised his hands in an attempt to calm Luo Nan down. You said you're going to fix it. How are you going to fix it? And you're going to find the branch's laboratory. This is a contradiction. Let me tell you, even the branch's laboratory might not be able to grasp the relevant technology. Luo Nan didn't speak. He just swept his gaze across the room, from Worker Zhai to Crag Burst, to Shui Lei, and then to his own hands. Everyone had a share. Chapter 333. Crag Burst was stupefied when Luo Nan's gaze swept over him, but he quickly came to a realization. He immediately shrunk back. Don't talk about self-reliance. Helping each other won't do either. That's what you spiritual dogs should do. I'm a muscle type. You might as well let me kill my way into the headquarters. Luo Nan wasn't counting on him. He laughed and shifted his gaze. Worker Zhai, I'll have to trouble you with this matter. Worker Zhai opened his mouth, but in the end, he could only shake his head and smile bitterly. He had already expressed his helplessness on this matter many times. He was not being courteous, but had come to the final conclusion after evaluating the resources and technology involved. How could it be solved with just a please? He heard Luo Nan speak again. I know that I can't be impatient, and I never thought that I would see results in a month or two. I want to take this opportunity to ask you to help me lay the foundation. Luo Nan wasn't someone who was good with words. He stopped speaking at this point and saw that Worker Zhai didn't refuse on the spot. Luo Nan followed his train of thought and continued, I'm also on the mentally enhanced side. I'm also on the precision path. Brother Papercut also said that I should naturally get involved in the maintenance profession. I'll learn from you and you'll teach me. We can even exchange pointers. Crag Burst saw that Luo Nan was having a hard time organizing his words. He couldn't help but speak up, you guys just happen to learn from each other. These words reminded Worker Zhai of something. His eyes lit up as he realized that this 16-year-old high school student was already an official member of the society. In terms of mental cultivation, he was definitely far above him. Luo Nan was able to have such accomplishments at such a young age. Aside from his peerless talent, Luo Nan should have quite a set of cultivation techniques. At the very least, Luo Nan's was much stronger than his wild fox Zen. In this way, not only would they be able to learn from each other, they would also be able to exchange what they need. He had spent many years outside the entrance of the association. Although he was open-minded, it was still a burden on his mind. Now that there was a new opportunity, Worker Zhai could not help but be tempted. But when he looked at the complicated structure of the shadow spider web and the thousands of diagrams on the screen, he felt a dull pain in his head. Agreeing to Luo Nan's request was easy, but Luo Nan's ultimate goal was still the dynamo core. Luo Nan didn't even have a basic direction for this. It wasn't his style to deceive himself and others. Worker Zhai unconsciously sighed again. Luo Nan knew that Worker Zhai's state of mind had changed somewhat, but there was still a hurdle in the bottom of his heart that could not be overcome. He thought for a moment and walked to the workbench. I heard you say that you're missing parameters, right? Worker Zhai's mind was in a mess. He took off his portable microscope and gently pinched the space between his eyebrows. Actually, it's a problem with the direction of research. The conversion of kinetic energy was only the simplest step. How to store it, how to do the work, and how to present it in such a precise structure. There are too many things involved. I don't know much about engineering, but if you want to talk about direction, I suggest this as a starting point. Do you have a pen? Luo Nan asked for a digital pen as he spoke. He drew a diagram on the 3D projection area, on the shadow spiderweb. With years of experience in sketching, the electronic pen's glowing lines were smooth and smooth. With just a few arcs, it drew a ball at the front of the thickest tentacle. Then, the tip of the pen cut the surface of the sphere, drawing a tetrahedron. Then, at the outer edge, sticking to the end of the tetrahedron, he drew an even larger sphere. Worker Zhai saw the entire process of Luo Nan's operation clearly. He also saw the diagram Luo Nan drew clearly. He was immediately stupefied. Sphere. Tetrahedron. Sphere. 3 diagrams. They were nested layer by layer. Their relationships were clear, and the areas where the diagrams connected and covered overlapped a great deal with the 3-layered tentacle structure of the dynamo core. It was not a rigid correspondence, but there was a sense of harmony that was pleasing to the eye. In the field of engineering, simple feelings were unreliable, but feelings were often the precursor to success. Archetype format. Cragburst blurted out, but then he quickly corrected himself under Luo Nan's blazing gaze. Formatting theory. What a coincidence. It's quite a coincidence. There's no harm in giving it a try. Luo Nan did not understand mechanical design, but he knew that when it came to the dynamo core, he would be pleasantly surprised if he used formatting theory. This point had already been proven by Jack. He threw down the digital pen and turned around. Worker Zhai, this is what I'm thinking. There's no harm in giving it some more thought. We can keep in touch at any time. Worker Zhai's gaze was glued to the 3D diagram. He reckoned that he would not be able to remove it for a while. Luo Nan and Cragburst bid their farewells and left. They did not take the hovering target when they left. The miniature rhombohedron was also left behind. Worker Zhai had no objections to this. Basically, they had already reached an agreement to cooperate. It could be foreseen that this agreement would last for quite a long time. Even with formatting theory as a reference, it was absolutely not a simple task to completely see through the mysteries of the dynamo core. Shuai Lei hung up the call. He was having a headache about how to hide this matter for a longer period of time. As for Luo Nan, he sat in the SUV with his brows furrowed in deep thought. Cragburst could not help but ask, "Where are we going now?" "The branch's laboratory." We're going to the Shangning building." Luo Nan came back to his senses. "What I mean is that I need the branch's laboratory's research materials related to the dynamo core. All of them. I also need to follow up on the follow-up progress." "What's there to ponder about? Just directly read it. And then I'll be watched and monitored." Cragburst grinned. Reading the materials wasn't a problem, but according to Luo Nan's words, he needed to follow up on the research. He needed to be deeply involved. This could indeed attract the attention of people with ulterior motives. Then let's switch things up again. Let Secretary He help. It'll be done in a few minutes. An intermediary company is fine too. Speaking of which, those intermediary agents and whatnot have been suppressed quite miserably. Secretary He is quite skilled at finding entry points. The so-called intermediaries and agents were some internal members of the society. They were hired by external powers. They relied on their membership privileges to resell the society's internal resources. After the operation against Jack last time, a few intermediaries were commissioned by Quantum Corporation to buy back the relevant equipment at a high price. They bought back nearly all of the seized equipment. Cragburst still didn't feel that reading the materials was difficult. His train of thought diverged as he said, "While ago, a bunch of intermediaries were fiercely raising the price of the dynamo core. Now they've all stopped. I heard that the financial backer behind them has changed. I'm talking about Quantum Corporation." "Not right now." Luo Nan shook his head. The financial backer Cragburst was talking about was Luo Nan's old friend, Yan Yongbua. Yan Yongbua hadn't been having a good time recently. He flew back and forth between Xia City and Luo City, transforming into a flying man. Even so, his position in the company was still on the verge of collapse. The enemy situation was unstable. This alleviated some of the pressure on Luo Nan. Cragburst still didn't know where Luo Nan wanted to go after talking for a long time. He was just about to ask again when a call came through on the psychic wave network. Ying. I'm on duty today. That's right. Boss Luo's personal bodyguard. He's right next to me. Cragburst spoke a few words before transferring the call to the SUV's portable multimedia system. The control panel lit up, and the upper body of Zhang Yingying's image appeared. Zhang Yingying was dressed in tight-fitting clothes. There was a bit of sweat on her forehead, and a few strands of hair stuck to her hair. A snow-white towel hung from her neck. She was the same as Shuelei from before. She had undergone a large amount of exercise. She waved at Luo Nan and beamed, "Hello, Boss Luo. Are you interested in swapping pointers? Let me experience your heart lantern of the eye's orifice." Next time. Luo Nan gave a simple answer. Zhang Yingying's invitation lacked sincerity. She waved her hand and ignored it. She changed the subject. "There's something I wanted to talk to you about on Monday. Since we bumped into each other, I'll mention it. There's money to be made. Do you want it?" Luo Nan frowned. "What money?" Zhang Yingying raised an eyebrow. "The money to buy the Devil Ray. Don't tell me you've collected enough." Luo Nan was very frank. "I haven't found a way yet." "Really?" Zhang Yingying laughed even more happily. "I'll give you a chance to do odd jobs. Do you want it?" "Odd jobs. Earn 60 million by doing odd jobs." Luo Nan didn't say anything. He just looked at Zhang Yingying with cold eyes. Zhang Yingying was dissatisfied. "What kind of look is that? No one's scamming you. Our company recently expanded our business, but we don't have enough manpower. We haven't had any capable newcomers recently, so we want to subcontract out a few. The pay is quite generous. Even if we can't fill your hole, we can still make up for it. Be frank. Do you agree or not? Give me a reply." Cragburst laughed from the side. "You need to sign up for a project when doing business. What if it's a gigolo, a princess, or something like that? Do we accept it or not?" Zhang Yingying grinned in amusement. She didn't get angry. She turned her head and shouted, "Boss, Cragburst said that you went to a nightclub to sell." Holy crap. Cragburst's majestic body instantly shrunk twice. He hated that he couldn't stuff himself under the driver's seat. Even Luo Nan instinctively leaned back a bit. Zhang Yingying laughed loudly. Of course, Her Majesty Empress Wu wasn't by her side, but the effect was still excellent. Cragburst came back to his senses and immediately cursed, "You're just a fox exploiting the tiger's might. A fox is so pretty." Zhang Yingying's hands extended to the top of her head. She held her index and middle fingers together, and she nimbly crooked them twice. Cragburst spat, "You're a freaking rabbit." Luo Nan couldn't help but grin. Zhang Yingying winked at Luo Nan. She beamed as she sent Luo Nan some information. "This is the details of our subcontracted business. Time is tight. Hurry up and give us a reply." "Oh right. The boss also wanted me to tell you that thanks to you, she's had quite a few social engagements recently. She's earned quite a bit of quick money. And there are people chasing after her. You're welcome." The smile on Luo Nan's face faded as he spoke. Zhang Yingying was clearly saying that quite a few people were trying to get Her Majesty Empress Wu's tacit approval from within the Xia City branch. This was within Luo Nan's expectations. "Hey, aren't you worried?" "What's the point of worrying? People's hearts don't grow in my stomach." Cragburst coughed. "Yingying probably wants you to go pay your respects and recognize her as your godmother. Go die." Zhang Yingying gave him the middle finger in a straightforward manner. "You won't even be able to find the door if the boss doesn't speak." Then she gave Luo Nan a smile. "Relax. Relax. Don't let your imagination run wild. Don't frown all day long. The boss and the president are watching." Headquarters won't be able to play their tricks a second time. As for making money, that's even easier. We ability users just need to find the right path. We can make money lying down. Cragburst blurted out, then we're still selling. Chapter 334. Zhang Yingying didn't talk for too long. She chatted with them for a bit before hanging up. The information she sent arrived at this time. Luo Nan looked it up through the hexier while Cragburst smacked the steering wheel and laughed mischievously. This sister is too noisy. Of course she has a good heart. Luo Nan understood what he meant and nodded. I know. The first time he met Zhang Yingying, she was certainly quick-witted and lively, but she had a temperament that never gave way to others. She wouldn't give up until she seized the upper hand. But not only did she give Cragburst the opportunity to talk about her just now, she even put on a self-mocking attitude, stirring up the atmosphere quite lively. Luo Nan couldn't help but laugh when he thought of Zhang Yingying's finger curling. But his smile soon vanished and he spoke softly. I seem to be quite depressed recently. Otherwise, with Zhang Yingying's temperament, why would she deliberately make him happy? Cragburst laughed loudly. You're stressed, right? That's normal. At your age, if you're still giggling and carefree after bearing all these things, then you really need to see a doctor. Really? That's normal. Of course it's normal. Back when I was in the Coast Defense Force, every time there was a rushing tide. You know what a rushing tide is, right? It's when a large number of mutants use the astronomical spring tide as an opportunity to attack the coast defense line. It's called a landslide and a tsunami. It blots out the sky and covers the earth. Cragburst started the car and the jeep drove out of the parking lot amidst the rumbling of the engine. It merged into the low-altitude magnetic rail of the electronic city. He continued to speak. After the warning and before the start of the battle, it's the most torturous time. There are even suicides in the barracks. A good portion of them are seasoned veterans who have experienced hundreds of battles. It's very likely that they'll survive even if they enter the battlefield. Humans have a limit to their endurance. Once the limit is exceeded, they become a freak. They're done for. But I can see that you're fine. You're far from your limit. Cragburst extended his hand as he spoke. The distance between his thumb and middle finger was quite considerable. Luo Nan laughed and sighed after laughing. There are still changes. He had a feeling that his reactions were a bit different when he encountered trouble. One had to know that what had just been discovered in the electronic city was the dynamo core. His father had secretly gifted him a mystical item, the key to allowing an altered human like Jack to become a burner, the level of mysterious technology that Earth's technology had yet to reach, and it even involved the mysterious power that was hidden behind the colossus that was Quantum Corporation. If this was a month ago, he would have disregarded everything and rushed to the Daoist gym to find the gym master and ask him about it. He would have pestered him to death to get an answer. But now, even though his conviction to research the dynamo core was firm, it was still a long way to go, even if his heart was about to be torn apart by an intense desire. Why? It was probably because he had some misgivings. In just a month or so, he had made enemies one after another, and they were all powerful forces in the world. After a few times, even a newborn calf's horns would be flattened. Luo Nan had a faint premonition that what awaited him in front of him was a deadly minefield. It was fine if he didn't trigger it, but once he did, he wouldn't even have the chance to turn back. Sharpening one's tools was the right choice. But on the other hand, waiting in ambush also came with a price. All sorts of thoughts couldn't help but emerge in his mind. They interweaved into a dense and gloomy net, and the pressure followed him like a shadow. Indeed, he hadn't reached his limit, but he wasn't far from being a freak. Cragburst drove his car through the flow of traffic. He shot a glance at Luo Nan and grinned. Nanster, I need to say a few words to you. Since you're a man, everyone has pressure. You can find ways to vent, but you can't show it on your face. Otherwise, people will look down on you. Vent. Cigarettes, alcohol, women. Pooh. I'm talking about learning, and learning. Turning pressure into motivation. Luo Nan copied Zhang Yingying and gave Cragburst the middle finger. Cragburst was a bit embarrassed. Don't look into the minor details. What I'm saying is that we can't let the weekend go to waste. If you don't have any plans, I'll arrange a place for everyone to relax. Cigarettes, alcohol, and women. Don't be a bad kid. Cragburst's rough voice cut off Luo Nan's thoughts. Luo Nan laughed and asked, "Where's the Trigate district?" "It's between the main city district and Man City. It's almost 200 kilometers away." "Why are we going there?" "Nothing. I saw the information Yingying sent over. It says that the partner is Trigate Security LLC. They're registered in the Trigate district. I've never heard of them before." "Oh, this used to be the camp of the Xia City garrison troops. It was removed not too long ago. The security company you're talking about should have a military background." "Not bad. It's quite easy to earn money from the government and the military at this stage." "What kind of business is it?" Luo Nan read from the information, "Native species, genetic and ecological maintenance." "What?" Cragburst didn't hear it clearly for the first time. Luo Nan repeated the information, clearly reading the relevant introduction. "It's a patrol and reconnaissance business. It's related to mutants. F***CK. What a scam." Cragburst smacked the steering wheel with force and the horn exploded. This time it was Luo Nan who didn't understand. "This business isn't good. It has nothing to do with business. I'm saying that as long as there's a similar business, it means that the government and the military are scamming the common people. F***CK. What the hell are the garrison troops doing?" Cragburst transformed into a furious youth in an instant. Luo Nan flipped through the information and slowly came to an understanding. Native species, genetic and ecological maintenance was a long and awkward name. Using one word to describe it, it was mending the pen after the sheep is lost. The mutants that were isolated in the wilderness and the ocean would occasionally break through layers upon layers of defense due to special circumstances. They would appear within the city of Xia City. This business was responsible for searching and killing these infiltrating mutants to ensure the safety of the city. Speaking of which, there were quite a few mutants within the city of Xia City. It was quite popular for rich families to raise 1 or 2 mutants. The Great Maw Basilisk that Ruewen had killed and the Flying Devil Ray that Luo Nan had subdued were all mutants. But these mutants had all gone through strict inspection and quarantine procedures. Their negative effects were already reduced to the minimum. The fellows that had accidentally infiltrated were different. They often carried highly pathogenic bacteria. There were even some that had broken through reproductive isolation and were able to reproduce with Earth's native species for the next generation. Once the related, mixed blood species spread out within the city's ecosystem, a few small mutations could lead to a great disaster under the enormous impetus of the population. The hidden destructive power of these mutants was even more astonishing than the mutants on the surface. Cragburst reached out and patted Luo Nan on the shoulder. "The task is arduous and glorious. That's what you say when you clean up the mess of the government and the military." Luo Nan grunted but said, "It's more suitable for me." "That's right. From what I remember, there aren't many who are stronger than you in reconnaissance. But this is very time-consuming and patience-consuming." "Hey, that's not right, right?" Cragburst suddenly came to a realization. Luo Nan was still a student. His extracurricular studies were very arduous. How could he have the free time to run around the city with someone else? Chapter 335. In November, it was said that the Arctic glaciers were melting. The weather was abnormal. A cold current flowed south, pushing the moist and cold sea winds through the city. Xia City, a coastal city, became unworthy of its name in the blink of an eye. It was as if winter had arrived a month earlier. A layer of frost had actually formed on the windows of the classroom in the morning. Fortunately, this physics class was held in a large classroom. 300 people were packed to the brim. The entire classroom was quite warm without the need for any heating equipment. Luo Nan sat in a row near the window. He was attentively listening to the lecture and taking notes. Various knowledge points, as well as their corresponding diagrams and formulas, were displayed on the standard holographic screen. They were divided into categories and arranged in a clear order. Luo Nan's serious attitude made him look like a good seedling of a gifted student. If Shualei hadn't been classmates with Luo Nan for over a month, Shualei might have been confused just by looking at Luo Nan's current performance. "Hey, don't you have an appointment this morning?" "It's a meeting." Luo Nan didn't even raise his head as he corrected him. "What time?" 9:30. "You're leaving after class." "I'll go with you." "You want to skip class?" Shualei was baffled. "How do I go if I don't skip class?" "Then I won't go. The agreement doesn't require me to show up in person." Luo Nan made Shualei dizzy with just a few words. The bell for the end of class rang at this time, signifying the end of the first class of the morning. The lecturer indicated for a temporary break, and the classroom rumbled with voices. It suddenly became noisy. Luo Nan continued to adjust the structure of the notes on the holographic screen. The core content did not come from him. It was worker Zhai's handwriting. It practically covered all the knowledge points of the high school level. All Luo Nan needed to do was fill in the details and do the corresponding high-intensity exercises. Needless to say, Luo Nan felt his thoughts become much clearer after a few tutoring sessions with worker Zhai. There were some immediate results. Luo Nan was neither fast nor slow, but Shualei was even more confused. He simply gave Luo Nan a push. "What does it mean?" "It means that you have to split your attention and become an incarnation. You have to take care of both sides." And so on and so forth. Shualei's eyes went wide as he listened. Luo Nan finally finished adjusting the notes while he was in a daze. He stretched his back. Coincidentally, a student opened the window. The damp and cold wind poured in, clashing with the heating inside the room. It actually jolted the spirits of a few drowsy students. Luo Nan and Shualei both turned their heads to look outside the window. Heading northeast from here, passing through the gaps between the buildings, was the wetland jungle at the end of the ash-gray clouds. Right now, it was all so dark over there. The colors of the sky and the landscape were mixed together, and it was hard to distinguish them at first glance. Normally, Shualei wouldn't mind looking at this scenery. But when he heard Luo Nan mention those arrangements, Shualei couldn't help but think a bit more, that it's in the forest right now, right? Yes, as a supervisor. Luo Nan replied without thinking. He suddenly laughed. It's really useful. Shualei was baffled. He looked at Luo Nan again and felt that Luo Nan's smile was quite cold. It was very awkward. Luo Nan didn't speak any further. He stood up and walked to the side of the window, gazing into the distant wetland jungle. The sky was gloomy, and the long river that cut through the forest was not visible. It was like a long gray belt, half hidden and half visible, cutting into the depths of the forest. A few water birds flapped their wings and flew up. They could be considered agile, but the scale was far from what it was a few days ago. Mutant. Oh, King Mutant. That fellow has destroyed this place. Our work will go back 10 years. When the water birds flew into the sky, a small wooden boat was sailing on the long river that cut through the forest. There were 4 people on the boat. Two young men held wooden oars in their hands. They used the most primitive method to power the small boat. Right now they were so tired that their tongues were hanging out. They also had to endure the incessant grumbling of the old man. They wanted to jump into the river and commit suicide for a time. As for old man Wu Zunliang, who had given them a great deal of mental pressure, he was already 90 years old this year, but his spirit was still hale and hearty. Even long periods of scientific research in the wild were as relaxed as taking a stroll. The sampling and research within the campus was unable to consume his excess energy, and this made his mouth even more idle. I can hear the noise of machinery even though I'm 2 kilometers away. This is undoubtedly pollution. Those people who issued the construction permit are all grandsons. The great upheaval a week ago had turned the ecosystem of the wetland jungle into a pot of porridge. The sudden cold wave was like adding hail to snow. It made the various departments of zoology, botany, ecology, genetics. Scholars, professors, and researchers wanted to cry but had no tears. At this time, some people who disregarded the vile situation and still carried out construction work within the jungle had undoubtedly become the target of loathing. Unfortunately, from a realistic point of view, their negative emotions were completely useless. The construction team at North Bank Gear had all kinds of documents. They held the permits of the Environmental Protection Department and the school. The construction process was also carried out in strict accordance with the relevant requirements. It was done impeccably. Wu Zunliang had tried to take advantage of his seniority to call the construction team to stop so as to avoid an even more fatal impact on the ecosystem of the wetland that was already on the verge of collapse. But the result left him very disappointed and very unhappy. He was unhappy and wanted to complain and vent. In any case, his wife wasn't at his side, so there was no one to reprimand. Before the 2 experimental dogs, who had changed jobs, went completely crazy, a tall woman wearing hunting clothes at the bow of the boat glanced back and said with a smile, "Teacher, in terms of age, there's nothing wrong with them calling you grandfather. It's just that suddenly having a bunch of big nephews gives me a headache." Old man Wu pointed at her. "At such a young age, you already want to be an aunt. Why don't you find a partner?" The one old pan introduced, "That's something." "Teacher, if you can't remember, I can't remember either." The tall woman adjusted the brimmed hat on her head, and then her gaze cut to the 2 suffering experimental dogs. "Seniors, are you tired? Let's change hands." "No need, no need." The 2 experimental dogs stuck out their tongues, shook their heads and wagged their tails, and simultaneously paddled with all their might a few times to prove that they still had strength to spare. The woman in hunting clothes didn't say anything else, and continued to chat with old man Wu. Teacher Pan hasn't been in good health recently, and often suffers from insomnia. Given her personality, she'll think too much when something happens to North Bank Gear. It's better to take advantage of this mess and finish repairing it as soon as possible, so as to avoid more trouble in the future. Hearing the student mention his wife, old man Wu smacked his lips and said, "Don't worry about salty carrots," before he didn't say anything else. However, it didn't take long for Wu Zunliang to look at the messy state of the jungle on both sides of the long river, and he couldn't help cursing again. Mutants are F*King exterminating things, and Cloud City Water Village actually does foster breeding. That dog's hit aquarium, I shouldn't have agreed to help. Ah! Old man Wu's chest drooped, and he stomped his feet. With each word, the wooden boat rocked back and forth, threatening to capsize at any moment. The 2 experimental dogs' faces were deathly pale, and the woman in hunting attire at the bow of the boat pressed down on the brim of her hat, smiling as she watched him vent. As an old-school ecologist, Wu Zunliang loathed mutants to the extreme. The devastation and continuous mutation of these monsters had destroyed the ecological theory of the Third World War, practically negating all the value of his life before the age of 50. In the following 40 years, he continued to make achievements, and he had numerous works to his name. The people of the world gasped in admiration at his grand feat of changing the field of research in his old age and climbing to new heights. Little did he know that his love for this field of study was about to be exhausted by the ugly and complex genes of the mutants. Acumen College's wetland jungle had been practically completely isolated from the influence of the mutants for the past few decades. It was one of the few places that could evoke the ideals of his original life. But now, even this place had been ruined. Old Man Wu truly felt that death was better than life. I'm going to write a letter to the school. No, I'm going to write a letter to the municipal government. Those grandsons of Cloud City Water Village, I'm going to punish them until they go bankrupt. If you want to write, then write. The woman in hunting attire echoed. At the same time, her gaze swept across the river shore, and she said with a light laugh, I'm actually more interested in that bald crow. With that kind of body, it's already surpassed a raven, right? I don't think a similar giant phenomenon has ever appeared before. Which one? When Old Man Wu turned his head to look, the large black-winged bird circling in the air had already disappeared into the depths of the forest, disappearing without a trace. It just so happened that the river curved at this moment, and the forest ahead was sparse. Another part of the lake had opened up, and one could faintly see gear standing on the north shore. It was covered in rust. When he truly saw the building, Old Man Wu, who had previously been muttering curses, became silent. He looked for a long time before turning his face and asking about the crow. Did you get a picture? It was sent to my mailbox. Teacher, I have an appointment, so I have to leave early today. Oh, you mentioned it yesterday. Go, there's nothing to do right now anyway. Oh, the four sides of this place aren't touching. Let young deer and the others row a bit more. The two experimental dogs' hearts were filled with tears, but they still had to agree. Yeah, it's a bit. Let's row a bit more. Just go straight to the shore. It's impossible for teachers' students to get lost in the forest. Old Man Wu laughed heartily. A moment later, the wooden boat neared the shore. The woman in hunting attire gracefully leapt ashore, and the small boat moved forward, pulling apart the distance. Old Man Wu shouted, Let's go home and eat tonight. No need, someone's taking care of our meals. The woman in hunting attire waved her hand, turned around, and entered the forest, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Old Man Wu sat back on the boat and turned his head to look at the gear building on the opposite shore. He sighed and patted the side of the boat. Control the speed. Don't forget to take samples. In the span of a few days, the North Shore gear, which had burned quite a large area, had already more or less recovered from its exterior appearance. The overall feeling of having been scoured by time made it not require too much of an external appearance. The current project was mainly the installation and remodeling of the internal equipment. On the day of headquarters operation, the destruction caused by that damned tank had practically razed the central control room to the ground. When the Devil Ray had put out the fire, the water cannon it had released had also caused a large area of electrical circuit damage. All kinds of pipelines had to be buried anew. The construction workers and technicians were carrying equipment in and out. It was a scene of work in full swing. The bald crow flapped its wings to cushion its fall. It steadily landed on the railing of a viewing platform at the top of the building. From this position, it could see the figures of people entering and exiting the building. It could also see some areas inside the building through the glass. Inside the building, there was a construction worker pushing a high-precision imaging instrument. He openly walked around each floor of the building. From time to time, people would come over and input data obtained from other locations, continuously adjusting the parameters and establishing a database that might be even more detailed than the design blueprints. The scope and intensity of the construction workers' work, when converted to value, already far exceeded the remuneration they received from the school. Chapter 336. It was 9:15 in the morning. The second morning class of Acumen College had already begun. The surrounding schools were more or less the same. The students, who were the main consumers, were bound to the campus. The streets of the large living area were relatively deserted. There were only magnetic rails extending out at low altitudes. Flying cars streaked past from time to time. Acumen College was located in the Pingjiang district. It could compete for the throne of the lowest average building height in Xiao City. Even though Cloud City Water Village had a super tall building complex in the center, it only made the surrounding environment seem shorter and flatter. The crow flapped its wings and skillfully streaked through the gaps between the surrounding buildings. It soon locked onto the entrance to an underground parking lot. Taking advantage of the pedestrians not noticing, it practically stuck to the top of the doorway and flew in. It twisted left and right and soon arrived at the underground third floor. It found its final target amidst the hundreds of parked cars. Amidst the flapping of its wings, the crow landed on the roof of a commoner's SUV. Its jet-black claws lightly knocked and the sunroof immediately opened, swallowing the crow inside. The car was filled with the aroma of beef. In the driver's seat, a robust middle-aged man held a bag of freshly baked roast beef. He directly stuffed a piece of maroon meat into his mouth. The enormous crow entered the car. When it retracted its wings, it smacked the man's head. He didn't even raise his head. He was very focused. The man's skin was red. This kind of skin color was quite common among Caucasians, but it felt a bit sickly on an Asian. He had a tuft of beard on his chin. It looked like an artist's beard, but it was placed on his face. It looked very crude. The crow sized up this person with curiosity. Then it stood in the front passenger seat. Its claws hooked onto the seat cushion. It stood quite steadily. Its enormous bird body already exceeded 70 centimeters. It stood in the front passenger seat at about the same height as a normal person sitting. The man turned his head to look after swallowing most of the meat in his mouth. He met the crow's jet-black pupils and went, "Oh." He freed a hand and rummaged through the storage box in the middle of the car. He took out a box and tilted the food packaging, pretending to pour it into the box. "Want to eat? If you want, I'll share some with you." This must be someone in the same trade. Otherwise, why would he treat a crow like this? This enormous crow was none other than Luo Nan's pet. It was also Luo Nan's earliest believer, Ink. Right now Luo Nan and Ink shared a view. He could control it, so Ink shook its head. "If you don't want to eat, then forget it." The man stuffed another piece of roasted beef into his mouth and chewed hard. Then, he reached out and grabbed a rubber band-like object from the center console. He put it on his index finger and shook it. It was obvious that the material was flexible and had a purplish-red luster. It was very eye-catching. "Lift your leg." Luo Nan was very cooperative. He sent the command to Ink, and Ink jumped a bit. It raised a claw crookedly. The man used 2 fingers to pull open the rubber band and wrapped it around Ink's shins. Immediately, he tightened the band against the skin. With the claws blocking the lower part, it wouldn't fall off. There was a purplish-red circle around Chimo's foot, which was also quite eye-catching. From what Ink could sense, it didn't seem to be affected at all. As the man chewed on the meat, he mumbled, "This gadget is specially made. It's a communication device. It's very simple to use, and it's more suitable for you psychics. You'll know once you try it." A communicator strapped to his leg. Luo Nan pierced it with his mental strength, but there was no response. Then he interfered with the material plane a bit, immediately triggering a mechanism. The rubber band trembled slightly, sending out a corresponding signal. "Hello, hello." There was no sound in the car. The middle-aged man in the driver's seat tapped his ears. "I hear you." So this was how it could be used. It was indeed quite convenient and effortless. Luo Nan reckoned that even if he didn't comprehend the coupling technique, he would still be able to realize external communication by relying on the paper-blowing interference power from before. Right now, there was only one question. Luo Nan asked through the communication rubber band, "Isn't it a bit roundabout? You can use the hex ear, right?" Luo Nan still remembered the last time he and Crag Burst acted together. The two used the hex ear to communicate without hindrance on the psychic wave network. They were able to seamlessly connect to the society's large operation. Why did they need to open a new communication channel? That's your communication network. I can't reach it. In addition, your partner hasn't joined the society. That's all. Partner. Then you. Oh, what's your name, Master? My surname is Jean. Master Jean. Fourth tone. Gujang Jean. You can just call me Old Jean. In any case, I'm just a driver. Luo Nan felt that this person was a bit emotional. Perhaps his situation was similar to Worker Zhai's. He was a person within the circle, but he wasn't an awakened. It was normal for him to be a bit jealous. In any case, this person was a hired employee of the hidden indigo firm. Luo Nan didn't need to worry about his mental state. Zhang Yingying had played such a trick. She had Luo Nan hide behind the scenes and had the spiritually attached crow do the reconnaissance. There was nothing to criticize in terms of safety, but when it came to doing things, there was always a bit of mystifying. Luo Nan needed the cooperation of a partner. Originally, Luo Nan believed that this straightforward driver before him would be his future partner. But from the tone of his voice, it seemed that it was someone else. Knocking sounds rang out from the car window as he was pondering. Old Jean unlocked the door, and someone opened the door to sit in the back. The person wore a brimmed hat, and the shadow covered half of his face. He was quite mysterious, and he leaned back just as he sat down. His body movements were quite relaxed. Old Jean, my partner. Oh, a 70-centimeter bald crow. He's a giant. The person in the back swept his gaze over Ink, who was sitting in the front passenger seat. He immediately let out a gasp of admiration. Normal bald crows were around 50 centimeters in length when they reached adulthood. Ink's physique far exceeded that. Just a search on the internet would reveal this. But this person was able to distinguish the species of crows with a single glance and was well versed in the relevant knowledge. He should be an enthusiast or a professional. The person took off the brimmed hat as they spoke. Her black hair hung down like a waterfall, setting off a bright and beautiful face full of vitality. It seemed to brighten up the dusky car. Yes, this was a woman. She looked very young, around 20 years old. Her skin was a healthy wheat color. It wasn't dark, but it revealed a bright luster of life. To use a common saying, she was full of collagen, displaying an abundance of vitality. She casually tied her hair into a high ponytail. It could be seen that she was quite tall. When she straightened her back, her head nearly touched the roof of the car. And the hunting clothes on her body were tight, making her figure appear all the more curvaceous. Old Jean, I'm not late, right? Look at the speed of the car. Old Jean gave a simple reply. Then he poured the entire roast beef from the bag into his mouth. His cheeks bulged as he chewed with force. He knocked on the control panel, and the car started up in smart mode, driving out of the underground parking lot. Luo Nan was speechless at such a bold way of eating. The beautiful woman in the back seat extended her hand over at this time. Luo Nan instinctively felt that she wanted to shake his hand and greet him. He wanted to order Ink to extend its wings in response, but the crow's head had already been struck. Then it was rubbed left and right. This crow isn't bad. Oh, or should I say spirit bird, lich, or shikigami? Which one sounds better? Peony has brought along a communication device. You two can directly talk. Old Jean spoke vaguely, giving Luo Nan an introduction. Peony. Luo Nan touched the rubber band and gave it a try. Hi, Mr. Crow. Hello. Hello. In any case, Miss Peony, it would be even better if you could stop pressing on Ink's head. This giant is called Ink. That's easy to remember. It'll be easier to greet him in the future. Also, there's no need to add Miss. Peony is my nickname. Just call me directly. Then you can just call me Crow. According to Zhang Yingying's explanation, everyone participating in this operation didn't know his true identity, including his partner. Of course, this was another layer of insurance, so Luo Nan accepted it. Peony laughed. Her eyes were very beautiful, and the corners of her eyes were very long. There was a clear reclining silkworm under her eyes, and the color was bright and moist. When she laughed, her eyes would curve into exquisite crescent moons. It was very alluring. Okay. I'll leave Mr. to Ink. Mr. Inked sounds pretty good. Scratch. Ink's fuzzy self-awareness awakened when he heard someone say his name in succession. He opened his mouth to speak, but his voice was unavoidably hoarse and unpleasant to the ears. This means that you've agreed, right? At this time, the civilian SUV they were riding in had already cut into the high-speed magnetic rail. According to the driving route, they needed to take a detour from Cloud City Water Village to rise into the sky. Crow shot a glance at the skyscrapers that towered into the clouds in the distance as he changed lanes. He especially looked at Ocean Sky Cloud City, which was at the very front. He couldn't see the details of the building from his position, but waves of tourists had come over since a week ago. They especially loved the viewing platform on the 142nd floor of Ocean Sky Cloud City. They stayed for half a day or even a day at a time. Not only did they use the viewing binoculars on the platform, they also brought all sorts of equipment with them. They watched with great delight. This group of tourists formed an interesting contrast with some of the construction workers of gear. There were also many types of data and information exchanged between them. It could be said that they thoroughly researched gear from the inside out. What was even more interesting was that the origins of these people were quite complicated from the current intelligence. There were at least 4 or 5 groups of financial backers. There were conflicts between them, but there were also collaborations. They each showed off their schemes and played to their heart's content. But no matter how they fought openly and covertly, these people all had a clear goal. They were all observing and speculating. Was there a deeper secret in this building called gear? Could they do something about it? Therefore, Luo Nan understood that gear seemed quiet right now, but it had already sunk into a turbulent undercurrent. Moreover, it was sinking deeper and deeper. As for why it was like this, the reason was still unclear. The pressure. Nothing was said along the way. 15 minutes later, the car drove into another underground parking lot. This place belonged to a certain business hotel in the city district. This area was connected to the recycling stratum. When the car went down, a dispirited and deranged figure wandered about on the other side of the thick wall. His line of sight was unable to penetrate the car and the thick wall, but the area with a radius of 30 meters was within the range of Ink's perception. It transformed into a detailed scene that was reflected in Luo Nan's mind several dozen kilometers away. Under pure observation mode, whether it was Luo Nan himself or his believers, their mental strength could penetrate through walls. There was nothing it couldn't reach. The only thing that could be limited was the limited range that they could cover. A radius of 30 meters. This was the current limit of Ink's natural perception. However, Luo Nan could also use telekinesis and other methods to temporarily expand it by a large margin. Luo Nan compared the relevant information and felt that this kind of ability was already enough. The car stopped precisely at the center of the parking lot. The elevator was right in front of it. Old Jean smacked his lips. He had already swallowed his beef clean. Get off the car. There's nothing else for me to do. Chapter 337. Under old Jin's urging, Peony got out of the car first and put on her wide-brimmed hat once more. She raised her hand and fiddled with the back of her head a couple of times. Her high, knotted ponytail pierced through the top of her hat's buckle and swayed slightly. It was lustrous, bright, and beautiful, yet also appeared lively and dynamic. Right now, Luo Nan could confirm that Peony's figure was quite tall. She had the absolute figure of a model. At first glance, she could compete with his older cousin, Mo Ya. In other words, they were more than 180 centimeters tall. This put a lot of pressure on the youth who was only about 170 centimeters tall. Fortunately, he didn't have to reveal it now. Ink jumped out from the side window, unfurled its wings, and with a slight turn, flew forward. Luo Nan saw that the elevator had stopped on the ground floor. He pressed a button with his interference force in passing, and the elevator lights lit up. The doors opened just as Peony arrived. Thank you, Mr. Ink. Peony smiled unhurriedly, but she thanked the wrong target. However, when she smiled, the silkworm under her eye sockets became even clearer, outlining the shape of a crescent moon. The bottom of her eyes seemed to be shrouded by a light mist, misty and indistinct, making her look even more charming. Amidst her smile, Peony walked into the elevator and extended her hand to lightly brush her shoulder. Aren't you going to take a break? Luo Nan didn't express his opinion. Ink made its own decision. Perhaps it felt that the elevator was too narrow and that it couldn't spread its wings, so it simply landed on Peony's left shoulder. Wow, it's heavy. Be it from the perspective of species or the real world, Ink was indeed a big guy. At this moment, its two claws were hooked onto the shoulder of Peony's hunting clothes, and its wings were tucked in tightly. Otherwise, it would have forced Peony to tilt her head. The elevator went up and soon reached the 50th floor. There was a receptionist at the exit. When she saw Peony, especially the enormous crow on her shoulder, she stared blankly for a moment before coming forward to greet her. Hello, are you Lady Peony of the Hidden Indigo firm? Peony grunted. Her attitude was still quite adequate. When the receptionist's line of sight swept across Peony's pretty face, she was somewhat sluggish, but then her heart inexplicably chilled. He quickly attributed the reason to the crows. Let's not talk about whether the crow that occupied the shoulder of the beauty was majestic or not. Its posture was habitually leaning forward. Its height seemed fine, but its tail feathers and head formed a slanted line. It looked like someone was leaning forward and staring at you. The more one looked at it, the stranger its pitch-black eyes were. The receptionist couldn't help but take a step back. Realizing that she had lost her composure, she smiled awkwardly and took the opportunity to lean sideways. She gestured with her hand, "This way, please." Peony nodded and walked into the small conference room ahead. The room was about 40 square meters. The tables and chairs were arranged in an oval shape. The center was empty, and there was some equipment inside. At this time, the equipment was not turned on, but most of the chairs were already occupied. There were about 20 people. The appointed time was 9:30, and it was already 10:32. They were 2 minutes late, but the meeting hadn't started yet. It seemed like they weren't the only ones who were late. Seeing Peony come in with an enormous crow, everyone in the room turned their heads to size her up. Peony maintained her polite and distant smile. She withstood the gazes of everyone and directly found a place to sit down. She also brought out a curious gaze and swept it over the faces of everyone in the room. Her body language was very relaxed. Ink jumped down from her shoulder and stood on the table in front of her. Under Luo Nan's repeated warnings, Ink folded its wings and shut its mouth. It didn't utter a single sound, but its head twisted back and forth and its eyeballs followed suit. The beauty and the crow shifted their gazes and switched their targets at the same time. One person and one bird were brazenly watching the other participants. In the end, it was these people, who held the advantage in numbers, who couldn't take it anymore. They diverted their gazes one after another. Some of the people in the room had wanted to get closer to the beauty and greet her, but when they saw this situation, they dispelled these thoughts one after another. The atmosphere was bewildered and awkward. And so, of the 20 or so people in the conference room, only Peony's expression didn't change from beginning to end. Luo Nan couldn't help but admire her. He had ink as a cover, and he was several dozen kilometers away. He had no misgivings. And Peony's performance was clearly experienced. She was calm and composed, unyielding and imposing. I wonder what kind of work she does in the hidden indigo firm. Luo Nan discovered that he had been so busy these past few days that he was dizzy. He knew very little about his future partner. Right when he was pondering whether or not he should find Zhang Yingying and ask her for some information, the door rang out again. Another person entered the room. After a brief pause, the person walked straight over. The person simply pulled out a chair next to Peony. Only then did he bow and smile. "Can I sit here?" "Feel free." Peony turned her face to the side and roughly sized up the person. She didn't refuse. The person sat next to Peony. He was a young man wearing casual clothes. His semi-long curly hair was quite eye-catching. The ends of his hair hung down to his shoulders, and it was a bit fluffy. His complexion was extremely fair, and he wore an earring in the middle of his left ear. Luo Nan was certain that this bro stylist was absolutely amazing. Not only did he not look like a sissy, he even used his hairstyle to further embellish the lines of his slightly mixed-blood cheeks. This matched his healthy physique with wide shoulders and narrow waist. He had quite a manly air, and he had the style of an aristocrat from the old European royal families. After the person sat down, he first introduced himself. "Hello. My surname is Long. I'm ranked 7th. My friends call me Long 7. I just joined this group. I'll take the liberty to ask for your name. You can just call me Peony." "Peony." Long 7's gaze swept across Peony's cheeks. In the end, it landed on her wide-brimmed hat. "I'm guessing that you're a student of Acumen College." Luo Nan was caught off guard. Only then did he discover that he had been overthinking things. From beginning to end, he had just been conversing with Peony. Peony didn't have any ill feelings toward this handsome mixed-blood kid. A smile blossomed from the corner of her eyes. She asked very cooperatively, "What's the reason?" "Please forgive me for speaking bluntly. As an amateur team formed from students, Jungle Owl has just entered the main WCG tournament. They've only participated in the 10 days in the wilderness event. Their results are even more lackluster. The majority of their peripheral products will only be digested within Acumen College." Only now did Luo Nan notice that the wide-brimmed hat Peony was wearing had a logo in the shape of a nightingale on the front. Presumably, this was the logo of the so-called Jungle Owl. It can't be that bad. Jungle Owl's Pippi is very good-looking. He has a lot of fangirls both inside and outside the school. Peony's body leaned a bit more to the side. She propped an elbow on the table, and her fingertips pushed against the brim of the wide-brimmed hat. This careless action made the hat tilt a bit, but it gave her an even more carefree and casual air. Long 7 didn't say anything, but the eyeballs of the other participants who were sneaking glances at them nearly popped out. Next, Peony and Long 7 really did chat about topics related to esports. It was just that Long 7 was very familiar with the styles, members, and battle records of each team. Peony was more interested in the good-looking people of each team, regardless of gender. I really do care about good-looking people. Other people watched the live broadcast of fights, but I watched the highlights, interviews, and so on. Peony didn't hide her hobby at all. She giggled in extreme delight. Long Seven was just about to speak when he suddenly froze. Peony propped up her chin with one hand and extended the other under his startled gaze. Her slender fingers lightly brushed past the locks of hair at the side of Long Seven's temples. It seemed to even touch his skin. Of course, you're not bad either. The ambiguity level was off the charts. The thrill level was off the charts. The vast majority of people in the conference room were eavesdropping and peeking at the conversation between the handsome man and the beautiful woman. Some people were caught off guard by Peony's actions. They drew in a cold breath. There were also some people whose eyes lit up with raging flames. The reason for this was that grass had grown in their hearts. Long Seven instantly recovered from his astonishment. He instinctively reached out to grab Peony's probing fingers, but he was still half a step too late. Peony's slender hand noiselessly pulled back, but her thumb and forefinger were pinching a dazzling silver earring. It was the one on Long Seven's ear. Seeing the object on Peony's fingertips, Long Seven's complexion became grave for the first time since they met. "Miss Peony, just call me Peony." Amidst this seemingly familiar conversation, Peony's posture didn't change. She merely pinched the earring and brought it closer to her eyes, sizing it up in detail. Later on, her fingers clearly exerted more force, but the earring that resembled a fine loop didn't react. Long Seven's complexion was heavy. Just as he was about to say something, the beauty in front of him extended her slender hand again and delivered it to his eyes. "It's a pretty good earring. Is it platinum?" Long Seven didn't answer Peony's question. In the first instant, he took back the earring and put it back on his ear. His taut face relaxed a little, but he could no longer return to his previous cheerful state. The atmosphere became increasingly strange. Ink sensed the change in the atmosphere. It subconsciously flapped its wings and even dropped a feather. Peony casually picked it up and giggled as she poked Ink's head. She minded her own business and played happily. It seemed that she didn't take Long Seven's change in attitude to heart in the slightest. What a self-centered woman. Just as Luo Nan made his initial judgment, another person walked into the conference room. He stood directly at the front of the oval conference table and swept his gaze across the conference room. He nodded and said, "Everyone's here. Let's start the meeting." The last person to enter had an elderly appearance. He was at least 70 years old, but his posture was ramrod straight. His self-introduction was full of energy, and his voice was sonorous. "I am Wu Bin, the Executive Director of Trigate Corporation. I am also the person in charge of this project and the organizer of the team. I will be the one to coordinate the specific operations of the project for some time to come. There are 2 trustworthy professionals present here, and there are also the elites of the company. They all possess formidable strength. I believe that this maintenance operation will certainly achieve satisfactory results." Wu Bin's words were a bit bureaucratic, but this was in line with Trigate Corporation's judgment of having a military background. Wu Bin's words were inflexible, but this didn't mean that his brain was rigid. Wu Bin knew very well that this was the first time the experts he had invited were meeting with the members of the team. They needed to have an intuitive understanding. He took advantage of this opportunity to point at the subordinate beside him. "We'll start with you. Make a self-introduction." The subordinate suddenly stood up. He was just about to speak when Peony raised her hand from the middle of the conference table. Her fingertips were still holding the inky and translucent blue crow feather. "Director Wu, the Hidden Indigo firm hopes that you can explain the personnel composition of the operation team first. According to the contract signed between the firm and your esteemed company, we should be the sole professional instructors and commanders." 2 professionals. What do you mean by that? Her words silenced the pitiful subordinate. He could only look stupidly at Wu Bin. Chapter 338. Wubin furrowed his brows slightly when faced with Peony's inquiry. Then he revealed a smile and said, "It's like this. According to the latest intelligence, some of our targets have the ability to spit out large doses of radiation for a short period of time. They like to live in radiation zones, so I specifically invited Mr. Long 7. Wubin extended his hand as he spoke. Long 7 was very cooperative. He stood up to greet the people present. His bearing and demeanor were first-rate. His natural and relaxed body language diluted the awkward atmosphere in the conference room. There should be applause here. The participants really did start clapping. Wubin invited Long 7 to sit down and continued, "Mr. Long 7 is a professional talent recommended by Northern Hope Corporation. He possesses the special ability to use radiation harmlessly. Northern Hope Corporation's vision is worthy of trust as the world's top provider of human resources solutions. I also believe in Mr. Long 7's professionalism. At the same time, please believe in our sincerity in cooperation and our ability to fulfill the contract." Luo Nan already had a rough judgment when he heard this. This team should have frequent dealings with ability users. Talking about special abilities was as natural as drinking water to them. They didn't pay much attention to Ink, a strange pet. Presumably, they were rich in experience and didn't find it strange. This saved them a lot of worry. Peony interlaced her 10 fingers. The back of her hand arched slightly to support her chin. She appeared to be even more focused. However, the crow feather that lightly scratched the side of her face revealed a bit of interest. Of course, no matter what position a beauty was in, she looked good. She also had the wonderful effect of dispelling the negative emotions of others. She smiled just like this. "The firm has no doubts about your company's strength and reputation. But out of professional considerations, all matters must be led by the firm during the investigation and target locking process. This point cannot be changed because of the team's composition, the target species, the environment, and other factors." Wubin immediately responded, "We won't go back on the matters emphasized in the agreement." Peony's gaze switched to Long 7's face. "The firm will not be responsible for any losses caused by the partners or team members who violate the terms of the agreement during the operation. We will withdraw from this project according to the agreement and demand compensation." Wubin confirmed, "No objections." Long 7 gazed at Peony from the side. 2 seconds passed before he laughed, "I provide specialized services. Miss Peony oversees the overall situation. The two don't contradict each other. I will certainly abide by the relevant provisions." Peony laughed as she sat up straight. She tossed the crow feather on the table. "Then I have nothing else to say." Wubin secretly heaved a sigh of relief. A bold smile appeared on his face. "Since we're a team, it's best to communicate in time. Being able to point it out like Miss Peony can eliminate many problems." Although he said this, he wasn't willing to let Peony open her mouth again. He indicated that the personal introduction should quickly begin. Immediately, the team members introduced themselves one by one, as well as their positions in the team. Very soon, it was Peony and Long 7's turn. Draconic 7's appearance was rather noble, but he had a sense of community. He took the initiative to introduce himself. "Director Wu mentioned just now that he's mainly interested in my radiation decontamination ability. I won't talk about that. In addition, I've also done some research on firearms and exoskeleton operations." Peony suddenly interrupted him. "What kind of exoskeleton? Military? Police? Or a deep blue walker?" Long Chi smiled and replied, "Anything is fine." "Oh, sorry for my rudeness." Though she said this, Peony wasn't surprised in the slightest. She casually raised her hand, indicating that it was her turn. "As you can see, my special ability is to control birds to carry out wide area reconnaissance. In addition, I can do some intelligence integration and analysis work. It seems like the team already has an intelligence officer. Wu Bin immediately declared, "We will definitely cooperate well." Axel Thor is mainly in charge of communication and information sharing. He's a very good assistant. Intelligence Officer Axel Thor, who had just introduced himself, stood up once more and greeted Peony. Afterwards, he didn't sit down again. Instead, he followed Wu Bin's intentions and began to introduce the specific information of the operation project. This wasn't just a report to Peony and Draconic 7. The vast majority of the people in the conference room were elites of Trigate Security's operations department. However, they didn't have the authority to inspect certain key information. It was necessary to carry out a comprehensive explanation. The light in the room dimmed, and the projector turned on, projecting a different world inside. The light in the background was that of dusk. The setting sun shone at an angle, and the dark red soil of the desolate plains was folded layer upon layer. It absorbed the multicolored light, like a surging wave of blood that froze in an instant. It piled up into an uncountable number of hills and ravines, extending all the way to the ends of the world. The wilderness. Wave peaks and hills. Draconic 7 muttered. He seemed to be talking to himself, but he also seemed to be deliberately communicating with Peony. Peony turned her head to look at him. "You're very familiar with the surrounding terrain of Xia City." "I run around once in a while." In the time it took to say 2 or 3 sentences, the aerial image continued to push forward. At the end of the monotonous horizon, the altitude gradually dropped, revealing a blood-colored hilly region. This caused Draconic 7's words to be filled with foresight. The camera gradually locked onto the target. In the skies above the hilly region, countless black dots circled in the dusky sky. They were like a weary flock of birds returning to their nests. But when the camera zoomed in and locked onto an individual, Luo Nan's eyelids twitched even though he was far away in Acumen College's campus. The thing that appeared in the center of the projection wasn't a bird at all. It was more like an ugly and deformed bat. This was a mutant, without a doubt. The body of this bat wasn't large. Its wingspan was around 30 centimeters. Its head was like that of a small canine. Its ears were very large, its teeth were sharp, and its eyes were blood red. Its entire body was covered in grayish-black fur. The most recognizable part was the 4 claws that stretched out from the edge of the membrane-like wings. From a different angle, one could see that this monster had all 4 limbs, and its muscles were knotted together. It looked extremely powerful, and its membrane wings were more like appendages. Intelligence Officer Axel Thew's explanation intervened in time. The winghand blood bat is a gregarious mutant. It normally feeds on the blood of large mammals. When it sucks blood, it injects paralysis toxins and various viruses. If the dose is high enough, it can be fatal. Its diet includes humans, as well as its own kind. A large population can be classified as a Class 2 threat. In the wilderness, vagrants generally call it pubula. It's an onomatopoeia, an imitation of the sound it makes when it flaps its wings. He turned on the sound effects as he spoke. The sound of the scene was reproduced with extremely high fidelity. Hundreds and thousands of strange bats circled and danced in the air, emitting a strange sound. It was like a large number of flags fluttering in the wind. It was a continuous stretch. Axel Thew cut out an anatomical diagram at the edge of the projection. "Everyone, please take note. The winghand bloodbat doesn't have a vocal organ. In its normal state, it doesn't make a sound when it flies or eats. It's a terrifying assassin of the night. It only makes a similar sound when it's courting a mate. Of course, they are extremely irritable and sensitive during these times. Their destructive power is at its strongest." As he spoke, a diagram popped up below the anatomical diagram. It seemed like this person's PPT skill was maxed out. The wing-hand blood bat is in heat. When it sucks blood, it injects a virus that is highly contagious and lethal. There have been many records of small to medium-sized vagrant tribes being wiped out by the virus. For example, this place is the ruins of a vagrant tribe that perished. The camera's perspective shifted. One could see that there were some empty holes on top of the hill. They were quite regular, serving as doors and windows. These were the crypts commonly used by vagrant tribes. They were relatively sturdy and had strong concealment. They could avoid the majority of predators in the wilderness. The game 10 Days in the Wilderness had scenes of crypt battles. Even Luo Nan was no stranger to it. It was just that what appeared on the screen was deathly stillness. As the camera switched, a few dried-up corpses appeared amidst the rubble and weeds. Practically every single person's body was curled up. It was easy to imagine that they had experienced a bitter struggle. The conference room was silent. Intelligence Officer Axel Thew continued to explain, "We need to pay special attention to this. According to the latest research, certain mutant wing-hand blood bats have evolved to have limited control over the virus." I don't know if everyone understands what I'm saying. Long 7 interrupted and asked, "Are you saying that the wing-hand blood bat can control whether or not the target is infected?" No. It's the degree of infection. It might even include the probability of mutation. According to the experimental data of a certain research organization, a single wing-hand blood bat has successfully caused 2 experimental bodies to undergo mutation. Human experiments. Intelligence Officer Axel Thew swept a glance at his boss and shrugged, "The data doesn't show this." He didn't continue on this topic. He just patiently introduced all sorts of habits of the wing-hand blood bat, including the latest results of various research organizations. He didn't even leave out the mutant subspecies. Inevitably, he also explained the routes and areas where this mutant could infiltrate Xiao City one by one. Looking back, they spent a total of over 2 hours. Acumen College's morning classes had ended by this time. Trigate Corporation probably felt that it was too long and tedious. All sorts of drinks and fruits were placed on the table. Even Ink was given a cup of water. They waited until the end with great difficulty, but a rather impressive display board appeared on the side of the projection. There were many dark silhouettes and silhouettes on it. They were roughly divided into 4 layers. The top layer was a bit sparse, but the bottom layer was densely packed. There were at least 20 of them. The images of the wilderness and the flock of wing-hand blood bats transformed into a mass of light and entered the first silhouette in the upper left corner. This was the tempo of the conference going on for 2 days. Long 7 couldn't help but shake his head. It's quite a large scale. Isn't it better to sound the red alert now? Peony's eyes and lips were smiling, but the meaning behind her words wasn't the same. She didn't expect a direct response from Wu Bin. She directly spoke to her pet, "Mr. Ink, have you woken up?" Ink, who had been a wooden statue for a long time, raised its eyelids. It really did sleep under Luo Nan's orders. It only left a strand of mental clairvoyance to observe its surroundings for Luo Nan to use. Otherwise, with its lively and restless nature, it would have caused a ruckus long ago. "We've already prepared lunch. I asked the 2 experts to honor us." Wu Bin had no choice but to open his mouth to explain as he invited, "The wing-hand blood bats are exceptions." Peony cast a sidelong glance, 3 exceptions. And they're still called exceptions. There were 4 layers of silhouettes on the display board. The topmost layer had a total of 3, including the wing-hand blood bats. The second layer had 5. The third and fourth layers each had 8. There were a total of 24. There was no need to talk about exceptions. Just the fact that 24 mutants had slaughtered their way into Xiao City was one of the most serious public safety incidents in the last 30 years. Wu Bin continued to beat around the bush. The threat of these targets decreases in descending order from the top to the bottom. For this reason, we designed milestones and stage bonuses. The topmost 3 have special prizes. Peony looked straight at Wu Bin's face. It's great to talk about money, but the government and military rarely engage in this sort of targeted search, right? This way, we can increase efficiency. Yeah. It saves quite a bit of effort. Mr. Long 7, what do you think? Long 7 crossed his arms over his chest and made an action that wasn't very noble. The level of modern technology is really changing with each passing day. Peony pressed down on the goblet on the table and gave it a slight spin. The blue foam of the drink hung on the wall and spun. She then raised her glass and indicated to Long 7, cheers to the future of the Earth. Chapter 339. It was the turn of autumn and winter. The night increased and the sun shrunk. Half of the afternoon club time had yet to pass, but the sunlight that poured into Acumen College was dyed with a layer of blood. It faintly overlapped with the wilderness in the projection. Luo Nan rode the campus trolley to the auditorium. His eyes were half closed, looking like he was sleeping yet not. Shuai Lei didn't care. He had to split his attention. He had been like this all day. But his wristband vibrated for a dozen or so seconds. He could hear the buzzing vibrations from the side, but this bro still didn't respond. What was the meaning of this? In the end, Shuai Lei couldn't help but give Luo Nan a push. Someone's calling you. Luo Nan went, and finally came back to his senses. He looked at the contact and picked up the phone. Hello, third brother. The caller was Hu Huaying. The call connected with great difficulty. He asked right away, Nanster, where are you? I'm heading to Gear. Okay. Hurry up and get over here. The construction team is wrapping up their work today. The underground facilities can be considered to have been repaired. They called Old Xia, and Old Xia called me. He asked you to come and check it out. Check it out. Luo Nan felt that it was quite comical. Ever since Gear was damaged by fire last week, it had become a gathering place for all sorts of immortals. There were always 5 or 6 or 7 spies. Check it out for what? Check the amount of intelligence collected by each clan. Of course, this matter had nothing to do with Xie Junping and Hu Huaying. In the end, Luo Nan was too high profile back then. He also displayed extraordinary importance to Gear. Even if there was nothing special about Gear, it would still attract a few glances. Plus, this place wasn't that simple. Luo Nan's mood swayed for a moment before he responded in a low voice. I understand. I'll be there in a moment. Luo Nan hung up and leaned back. He unconsciously furrowed his brows. Shuai Lei turned his head to look. You're not having a meeting anymore. Luo Nan grunted. I'm not having a meeting. It's too long. I don't really understand. Actually, his words were a bit insincere. Shuai Lei didn't hear it. He was just curious. What did they talk about? It's about mutations, genetic pollution, transmission probabilities, and things like that. Luo Nan used telepathy to inform Peony as he spoke to Shuai Lei. He only retained a bit of telepathy to give ink a rein. His attention was completely withdrawn. It was already 4:30 in the afternoon. The meeting had already been going for 7 hours. Luo Nan withdrew, and he subconsciously let out a breath of relief. As time went on, the meeting became more and more involved in various professional discussions. The relevant professional knowledge was too obscure and profound for a high school student. Sometimes, it was like listening to a book from heaven. Forcefully trying to understand it was extremely taxing on the brain, and there were also inaccurate problems. If that was the case, then it would be better to directly listen to the results. The hidden indigo trading firm had arranged it this way. Luo Nan finally understood Zhang Yingying's good intentions. If he followed the pattern of today's meeting, then he wouldn't need to do anything for the next few days. But Luo Nan had to admit that this long meeting really broadened his horizons. The professional knowledge regarding the mutants and the wilderness, as well as the relevant intelligence analysis, were mostly unheard of and unseen. It was all thanks to the remedial classes that he had taken during this period of time. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't even be able to grasp the relevant basic knowledge. Recently, you have to be careful of cats, dogs, birds, bats, and mice. Don't get hurt by them. By the way, there's a recycling stratum in the Twin River district. Pay attention to the people. What's wrong? Virus infection. A plague outbreak. It's not that serious. It doesn't affect normal people too much. It's mainly us. Luo Nan recalled the knowledge he obtained from the meeting and gave Shuelei a warning. Mutants spread the virus. The stronger and stronger the infected person, the greater the probability of a mutation occurring. Ability users were the most dangerous group. Just like the storm caused by the splitting and spreading of the human-faced arachnid some time ago. Aside from a few unlucky bastards who were close by, normal people practically escaped unscathed. But many ability users of the Xia City branch were controlled by the parasite, causing a huge mess. It was an infection on the mental plane. And for mutants like the wing-hand bat, their toxins and viruses were transmitted through the blood. Enhanced fleshly body users were more likely to attract flies. Shuelei's teeth ached from hearing this. He grimaced in pain and couldn't help but ask for a few details. Luo Nan acted as the translator. He told Luo Nan the information he knew and selected the ones that were directly related to himself. He only requested that Shuelei not spread it further and that he remind his family to be careful. It was fine for them to immediately contact the society if any symptoms occurred. Biohazard crisis, huh? Did the city hide it like this? If you didn't say it, there wouldn't have been any news at all. Oh right, is there a problem with you saying these things? I did sign a confidentiality agreement. Luo Nan laughed and waved his hand. The agreement clearly states that the Hidden Indigo firm and its shareholders have the right to know and follow up on relevant developments. They also have the right to notify relevant stakeholders at their discretion. But it shouldn't cause any social impact. Isn't that fine? Social impact. Shuelei didn't quite understand. Don't go on the various authoritative media outlets. Rumors don't reach a certain scale. This should be fine. Shuelei let out a sigh of relief, but he couldn't help but laugh in spite of himself. This agreement isn't worth a fart. It can be considered an unequal agreement. This clause was indeed extremely vague. If one were to force the words out, then the scope of knowledge could be expanded limitlessly. The Xia City branch was a shareholder of the Hidden Indigo firm. It was also a relevant public welfare party. And Shuelei was also a member of the society. There was no problem in terms of legal principles. It was unknown how many times Peony had used this sort of method in the meeting to torment Wu Bin to the point where he wanted to cry but had no tears. This was another harvest of Luo Nan's today. Aside from professional knowledge, it also included methods and techniques for handling matters. Peony, Long 7, Director Wu Bin, Intelligence Officer Axel though, and the others had done a very good demonstration of this. Luo Nan spoke to Shuelei, expressing his emotions. Swords and blades, killing silently. Just what are these people's brains made of? He truly admired Luo Nan. Luo Nan had experienced many things ever since he entered the inner world. He was always in the eye of the storm, and he was always the target of concentrated fire. There were many times when he needed to be at the forefront, contending against his opponents and negotiating with his teammates. There was no room for buffering. Reality proved that he wasn't a natural leader. To a certain degree, he was even lame. Ever since he was 10 years old, he spent the vast majority of his time in experiments, burying his head in research. His personality was introverted to the point of being autistic. He had no concept of certain things at all. He could only follow his feelings. There were many flaws in his actions, and there were many times when he was courting death. Fortunately, his luck was decent. He had the support of the power bestowed upon him by formatting theory. He also had the help of He Yuan, Zhang Yingying, and even big shots like Ouyang Qin. Otherwise, he wouldn't have died a violent death on the streets. Instead, he had stumbled his way through life until now. As for today's meeting, Luo Nan stayed behind the scenes, a rare sight. Only a strand of his mind was tied to ink. He kept his mouth shut, only bringing his eyes and ears. His experience along the way was truly pure observation, and he truly benefited from it. This was especially true for Peony and Long 7. Peony had a strong ego, but she was very good at using her beauty to conceal herself. Long 7, on the other hand, was a needle hidden in silk. His sharp and arrogant aura was hidden under his confident and noble words and actions. The two would sometimes oppose each other with equal harshness. Sometimes they would cooperate closely. Even a seasoned character like Wu Bin was brought into the rhythm of the entire meeting. The title of team leader had long since ceased to exist in name. The attraction of this sort of scene was much stronger than the dry classroom teaching. Peony and Long 7 were both in their 20s, but their reserves of knowledge, their behavior, their words, and even their personalities made Luo Nan feel that it was wonderful. He was very envious, and perhaps even a bit inferior. There was a difference of 6 or 7 years in age. Was the difference that big? Would he be able to reach this level if he trained for another 6 or 7 years? All right, it seemed like there was a glimmer of hope. Another call came in just as Luo Nan was describing the situation in the meeting to Shuelei. This time, the call came from a different channel. It was a vibration from the Hexier. It was Zhang Yingying. After the call connected, this sister excitedly cut to the chase and asked, "Did you shock them?" Shocked. Luo Nan sighed from the bottom of his heart. Your firm is full of elites. That Peony is really amazing. She seems to be from our school. Hey, you jumped into the sea to catch lobsters. Now you're being modest. Don't just praise others. What about you? Me? What else can I do? I was just pretending to be a crow there. Crow my ass. I think you're the one who's lost your mind. Bro, you're the core of this project, okay? It doesn't matter if they're elites or not. If you don't say anything, are they playing hide and seek in Xia City? Zhang Yingying's mood drifted erratically. She had been laughing and joking earlier, but now she was resentful that Luo Nan didn't live up to her expectations. The firm outsourced this project to you because of your mental sensing ability. All the work revolved around you. If our firm wants to finish the work, we might as well throw the money into the sea. At least we can hear the sound of it. Luo Nan didn't know how to respond. This was different from their previous bickering. Zhang Yingying was completely standing on his side. She had said everything that needed to be said. It would be a bit rude for him to refute her. He was silent for quite a while, but Zhang Yingying let out a sigh. She slowed down first. I'm not blaming you. I just feel that this opportunity is very good. It's more or less tailor-made for you. You handled things like a game. You can't treat the invasion of mutants as child's play. Describe. I'm just describing, okay? Haven't you noticed? Your biggest problem is that your heartstrings are too taut. Isn't it just searching for mutants? With your mental sensing ability, you're pretty much the only one in Xia City. Aside from the boss and the president, no one can do it better than you. This is your profession, your domain. You're the authority there. If you don't put on airs now, when will you? Oh my God. Luo Nan's silence spoke volumes. Zhang Yingying couldn't help but look up at the sky and let out a long sigh. You were at Frost River Reality and Ocean Sky Cloud City. Your performance was pretty awesome. You blocked people until they went crazy. You tricked people until they vomited blood. You killed people until they were completely annihilated. You were freaking godlike back then. It's only been a few days. How come you're shrinking more and more? I'm not shrinking. Luo Nan wanted to clear his name. Yes, yes. You're an old man, but you can't keep it up all day long. Is your brain short of blood? Zhang Yingying's mouth was like a machine gun. She suddenly fired shots. Relax. Relax your mind. What are you nervous about? Are you afraid of losing face? Don't talk about your authority. Even if you're a bit flawed, you don't even show your face. So what if you're wrong? That crow is called ink, right? It's just a mask. With it blocking the front, no one knows who you are. You can laugh, you can curse, you can cry, and you can make a fuss. As long as you don't tell them, who will know? Chapter 340. Zhang Yingying stuttered a bit when Luo Nan really asked. She had spoken with a wave of emotion in an attempt to arouse Luo Nan's emotions. She didn't pay attention to what came before and after. She never expected that Luo Nan would be numb to the extreme. He even had the leisure to ask a question. Zhang Yingying had no choice but to make up a story on the spot. Look. People wear masks. They have an extra layer of protection. With protection, it's easier to let go. Isn't there a school of performance that lets people wear masks on stage? That way, the expression of the body is more important. You don't need to worry about your face or your appearance. The audience will naturally imagine things. Isn't it said that imagination is more perfect than reality? Zhang Yingying's logic was already a complete mess when she spoke to this point. Even she had to cover her face. But she never expected that Luo Nan would really be led into the ditch by her. So you're saying that this is a performance and I'm going to manage a new image. This will reduce the pressure. The power of his imagination had exploded. Zhang Yingying's collapsed logic was inadvertently salvaged by Luo Nan. She immediately seized the opportunity and fiercely nodded from the other side. Yeah. Do you see those trolls online? Many of them have high incomes and high education levels. Normally they appear virtuous in front of others. But when they go online, they create sock puppets everywhere. Their mouths are full of shit. This is their way of venting and relieving pressure. Think about it. This is human instinct. Your behavior online is certainly different from your own personality. Luo Nan seriously recalled his online life. Then he answered, there doesn't seem to be any difference. Zhang Yingying took a deep breath. Then she spat out word by word. She gnashed her teeth. Then learn. Learn how others vent. Learn how to let go. Otherwise, you'll collapse sooner or later if you keep being this nervous. You don't need to think about anything else. In the entire firm, only the boss and I know your identity. Even Peony doesn't know. Of course she doesn't know. She's a newcomer. What does she do in your firm? What else can she do? The boss just discovered her recently. He hasn't arranged any specific tasks yet. It just so happens that there's this project. Let her cooperate for a bit. Luo Nan felt as if his heart had been stabbed with a knife. Not only did he not relax, he became depressed. Newcomers are this amazing. What did she do before? Zhang Yingying was getting impatient. That's because the boss has a good eye. He seems to have been observing for a while and only recently recruited him. She's not from the society, nor is she from the church. She has nothing to do with the military. God knows where she came from. She's so mysterious. Oh right, don't let her scare you. She's just an assistant and a messenger. The real decision maker is you. Luo Nan really wanted to say, you wouldn't think this way if you were participating. But he suddenly felt that something was wrong when the words reached his mouth. It was the same topic, but Zhang Yingying's emotions were much more intense than last Sunday. She was obviously not calm. As soon as this thought arose, the words that came out of his mouth also changed. You don't like this peony too much. Zhang Yingying fell silent. Luo Nan recalled Zhang Yingying's attitude and suddenly realized, you can't be fighting for favor. Jealous of a newcomer. Go to hell. Zhang Yingying was really angry and hung up the call. Luo Nan grunted, but his judgment became firmer. He could judge from Zhang Yingying's character and words that she should have a very special position in the hidden indigo firm. She was doted on by Her Majesty Empress Wu. And the newcomer peony had suddenly appeared. Her conduct was very brilliant, and her abilities were very strong. She probably gave Zhang Yingying a sense of crisis. These thoughts were very subtle. Perhaps Zhang Yingying herself didn't even realize it, but Luo Nan had rashly pointed it out. Honestly speaking, this was very rude. Hanging up the call was a light punishment. It was good enough that she didn't blacklist him. Luo Nan scratched his head. He began to have a headache about how to apologize to Zhang Yingying. But in the end, he wasn't someone who could speak well. In the end, he could only leave a message on the psychic wave network. I misspoke. I'm sorry. Also, thank you. I understand. Luo Nan assessed himself. The first few words were very clumsy, but they were very sincere. But the last few words had a fake meaning. Understand. The reasoning was clear, but his thoughts were far from clear on how to do it. Most of the time, Luo Nan felt that doing these things didn't have much meaning. Relax? Would relaxing make those enemies who were eyeing him like tigers let go? Would it make his pursuits materialize? If he had the time to mull over this matter, it would be better to calm his heart and do a few more exercises. Suddenly, someone in the car let out a low cry. A muffled bang followed. Something smashed heavily against the car window. This brought about a new, even louder cry. Everyone in the car turned their heads to look. Most of the people in the car were habitually immersed in the internet. They didn't know what was going on outside the window. A guy wearing a baseball cap had already pulled open the window and was cursing into the distance. He even gave a middle finger, stinky feet. If you lose another 0-3, I'll kick your balls. Luo Nan saw clearly that a tram was passing through an open-air stadium. A player who was training lost control of his feet and let a football smash against the car window. This was a small matter, but a portion of the students in the car found a common topic. Someone said to the guy wearing the baseball cap, the Pathfinder team's level this year is insane. They can even lose 0-3 to Yunshang. Lucky for them, they even found Clark. Clark, that one-man race. He only knows how to run 100 meters along the sidelines. He wants to take the opportunity to practice track and field. How much transfer fee did the track and field club give him? Hey, he ran almost 20 kilometers for the entire game. If you can do it, why don't you go up? Go up and weed. After one lap, the turf will be fine, but his ankle will be broken. That's right. Lando Field is too trashy. It doesn't match the school's position at all. We should find a more responsible sponsor. Is there anyone who wants to sign with me? The atmosphere in the car grew more and more lively. Many people, who had been silent the entire way, broke their silence at this time. They all participated in the discussion of the game. Some students had already signed on the school's message board. Some took the opportunity to collect the contact numbers of female students. They gained quite a lot. Luo Nan didn't care about this at first. He raised his eyes and wanted to return to his own mental world. But at this time, he saw Shuelei. He was also exchanging contact numbers with someone. They were discussing topics related to Clark's level. Luo Nan was inexplicably horrified. You know that guy? Of course I know. Clark. Kembo, the sports star of the school. He's a lightning bolt on the field. Rumor has it that he'll soon be selected for the City United team. I saw him compete at the beginning of school. His feet aren't as rough as others say. Shuelei responded as if it was a matter of course. Then he was horrified. You don't know. There are posters of him all over the school building right now. Luo Nan gaped. He looked at the chattering peers on the car, and his heart inexplicably sank. Several seconds later, he opened his mouth and asked, You know what a jungle owl is too? Of course. Our school's team plays 10 days in the wilderness. They lost miserably in the fall competition last month. You met someone from the jungle owl? Who? No. Luo Nan muttered a few words in response. He turned his head, and his gaze passed through the window, unconsciously sweeping the campus. Shuelei was confused. What's wrong? Nothing. I just feel like I'm quite a homebody. Luo Nan laughed and didn't say anything more. Actually, he had lied once again. His evaluation of himself right now couldn't be described as a homebody. Shuelei concentrated on fighting. Peony was employed at the hidden indigo firm. The businesses they engaged in were a certain distance away from the world of normal people. But they didn't lose their perception of their surroundings. Luo Nan was far too boring in comparison. The trolley slowly arrived at the auditorium station. Students and passengers got on and off the trolley, and the topic of football had already vanished into thin air. It was as if nothing had happened. Luo Nan deliberately turned his head to look after getting off the trolley. Soon, his line of sight cut into the lively surroundings of the auditorium. He had been training his eyes orifice here a week ago. He was very familiar with every blade of grass and every tree. He had an idea of how many steps there were. The faces of the people who often moved around here were even a bit familiar to him. But that was all. After all, these were only his temporary observation targets. Deeper information was meaningless. Luo Nan had always understood things this way. But when he returned here today, he suddenly had a feeling he was incompatible with this auditorium, with the surrounding plaza, and even with the entire campus. He was like this 2 months ago when he first entered the school. He was still like this now. This feeling wasn't too good. Luo Nan and Shuelei didn't waste any time. They directly entered the forest on the outskirts of the north bank. They made a few turns, and they arrived in front of Gear. The smell of smoke and fire from back then still lingered in this place. The construction team had already finished today's work by this time. They withdrew one after another, and the place became a bit more lively. Hu Huaying was already waiting in the lobby by the time Luo Nan arrived. Aside from him, the supervisor and the project manager were all here. It looked like they were treating today as an official inspection. Hu Huaying immediately introduced them to Luo Nan. Luo Nan nodded in greeting, but he didn't have any intentions of going deep into the conversation. He didn't immediately start the inspection either. Instead, he asked about Xie Junping. In the past, the young master of the Xie family was always at the forefront. Luo Nan really did miss him a bit when he was suddenly not around. With him here, they could chat a few dirty jokes. wouldn't it be lively? Old Xia has been quite mysterious lately. It's probably because he's playing around with Sissy Du he's fasting and cultivating. Luo Nan accidentally heard the biggest joke in Xia City. He couldn't help but grin. Hu Huaying couldn't help but laugh as well. He wakes up at 6 in the morning and sleeps at 9 in the evening. He's persisted for 5 days. Oh, this isn't simple. But having a regular lifestyle is a good thing. It looks like he's persevering. The Sissy Du that Hu Huaying mentioned was the former president of the Mystic Arts Research Society, Duyong. Luo Nan had only met him once, so he wasn't too familiar with him. He just knew that Duyong was a bit neurotic, but he was a decent person. They chatted idly for a bit before talking about gear. The project manager maintained his silence this entire time. The supervisor explained things to Luo Nan, but Luo Nan didn't really listen. It was nothing more than equipment installation and wiring, maintenance of various systems, and so on. Luo Nan grunted and grunted in response. He wasn't a professional, so he was entrusted to the supervisor according to the contract. However, it wasn't just the construction team. The supervisor's spy operation was also flying. Chapter 341. Luo Nan recognized that gear was currently attracting flies. In Acumen College, gear possessed a bit of a mysterious color. Even Xie Junping, a layman, had heard of names like the Ritual Society. He said that it was very suitable for carrying out mystic rituals. Then there was Luo Nan. It was hard for the professionals and experts to not feel that something was fishy. Actually, the Xia City branch had already made an assessment before the spies from all walks of life flooded in. They also said that the structure of the building was out of the ordinary. As for where the specific beauty lay, they were unable to come to a conclusion for a while. Because of this, He Yuan suggested that Luo Nan follow the principle of opening up is better than blocking, and let the spies in first. This way, they could not block everything and let the people from all walks of life speculate in their hearts. The matter of headquarters could serve as a warning. This was a smart method, but it was also a cowardly move. Luo Nan acted according to He Yuan and the others' instructions for a week. He turned a blind eye to the spies' actions on the surface, but in reality, he was fretful in his heart. He could not stop the spies from all sides. He could only swallow his anger, but this did not mean that Luo Nan would treat the spies well. He already had a plan in mind. He let the supervising engineer do as he pleased and let him wander around the underground space. He did not express any opinions or emotions for over half an hour. The sky was already dark. The supervising engineer and the project manager were completely unable to grasp Luo Nan's pulse. They were unable to continue. Hu Huaying could roughly see Luo Nan's attitude at this time. She stood up and said a few words, sending the supervising engineer and the project manager away. After waiting for the outsiders to get lost, Hu Huaying asked, "Nanster, is this project not to your liking?" Luo Nan shook his head. "I don't understand professional matters, but there's nothing to be dissatisfied with. Let them continue to repair it. You know, this place is of great importance to me. It would be fine if nothing happened, but if something did happen, I need to take some precautions. When that happens, I won't be able to find outsiders." Old Xia said that this construction didn't restore the previous defense system. He wanted you to personally design it. You certainly don't lack professionals. Hu Huaying giggled, more or less flattering him. Last week at Ocean Sky Cloud City, he saw with his own eyes how the arrogance of the young master of the He family was suppressed. No, he wasn't suppressed. The flames were extinguished on their own. The group of people surrounding Luo Nan were all very mysterious. Perhaps they had great backgrounds. Especially He Donglo's older sister. According to their later understanding, she really was He Donglo's older sister. She had just retired from the special forces and returned home. Who would have thought that she and Luo Nan would play together? In the past, she was a bit puzzled by Xia Junping's attitude of trying to befriend Luo Nan in every possible way. But now, it was different. If he was given a chance, he would be 10 times more enthusiastic than Xia Junping. No matter what was said or done, the Xia family was still the #1 business group in Xia City. The Hu family was a level lower. If the Hu family worked hard to catch up, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the Hu family worked 10 times as hard as they could. At this point, he had another thought. Old Xia didn't take good care of this person and instead went to play mysticism with Sissy Du. Was he relying on his relationship with him to stabilize, or was he trying to cater to his preferences in another direction? While he was thinking, they walked out of the fire escape and entered an open space. The light was dim. There were no lights to illuminate the place. A dark and gloomy sky hovered above their heads. Hu Huaying had been leaning here for several days now. She had a clear understanding of the architectural layout of gear and the maintenance process. She swept a glance and said, "The atrium here is a bit messy. It's hard to avoid some junk falling down during the repairs. We have to wait until the end to clean it up." Luo Nan grunted and raised his head to look up. Gear had 7 floors underground, 4 floors above ground, and a half-sealed rooftop. There were a total of 12 floors. Right now, they were on the lowest floor, looking at the ceiling of the atrium that was several dozen meters high. The architectural layout of gear was different from the vulgar. Only an architect or an insider like Luo Nan could understand how extraordinary it was. And the directions and angles were all different. However, for many people, the deepest impression they had of gear was the almost paranoid circular, stacked nested structure inside gear. And the most eye-catching of the series of structures was the perfectly straight atrium that connected all the floors before Luo Nan's eyes. The atrium of gear was different from most similar structures. The atrium of gear was located on the westernmost side of the building. Its edge was the outer wall of the building. Its height exceeded 50 meters, and the area it occupied wasn't small. If the lighting wasn't turned on and the angle of sunlight wasn't suitable, the pitch-black hole would be very frightening when looking down from above. Thinking about it in a crooked way, this was a good place to commit suicide. The outer wall of the atrium was surrounded by high-strength bulletproof glass, most likely to prevent similar situations from occurring. Every floor didn't leave a single gap. Jumping down really required skill. Luo Nan stood at the bottom of the atrium and raised his head to look at the sky. He could see the evening sky. The dusky sky was smeared with colorful paint. Aside from a sliver of the setting sun, the only thing that could be seen was the lights of the metropolis. The atrium had a diameter of 12 meters. It was already extremely spacious, but due to the height issue, it appeared rather slender no matter what angle one looked at it from. Only when one reached the bottom and personally experienced it would one know just how enormous this space was. Luo Nan smiled at Shuelei. "You can train here every day. The air isn't stuffy, right? When it rains, you can seal off the rooftop. It's more convenient than outside. I can give it a try." Shuelei grinned. He had been treating himself as a bodyguard ever since he entered gear. He didn't utter a single word and was extremely vigilant. He even operated the testing equipment provided by the society in secret, in case the construction team left behind some things that couldn't see the light of day. Right now, he was chatting with Luo Nan, and he finally relaxed. He imitated Luo Nan and raised his head to look at the sky. He suddenly had a strange thought: the rooftop ceiling platform should also be made of glass. It's like an astronomical telescope. Actually, it does have this function. Hu Huaying remembered that there was information about this in the information. She immediately showed off. It can be realized through an internal mounting module. The equipment room is on the 6th floor underground. Of course, special lenses are needed. The modification can be completed in an hour. Of course, this telescope can't be turned. It can only look at a small area above our heads. An hour. Shuai Lei was a bit moved. He really wanted to see it. Hu Huaying hurriedly added, "It can't be done now." This function was remodeled in 91. Not long after it was completed, the order club collapsed. The newly purchased equipment was completely sold off. They lost several $100,000 after depreciation. "Are you playing with me?" Shuai Lei rolled his eyes. Before he could say anything, Luo Nan sneered, drawing legs on a snake. Hu Huaying was stunned. Honestly speaking, she didn't understand what Luo Nan meant by these words. But it didn't affect her from echoing, "So, the snake's claws have been chopped off." Luo Nan didn't say anything. He looked up at the night sky above his head in silence. It was unknown where his thoughts drifted. Hu Huaying and Shuai Lei locked gazes. They were just about to speak when Luo Nan raised his arm to look at his wristband. His brows furrowed. "Someone's looking for me." "Third bro, you chat with Shuai Lei first. I'm going to take a call." Hu Huaying really wanted to agree. Then she would drag Luo Nan and Shuai Lei out for a meal and a game to strengthen their friendship. But she thought about it again. Luo Nan had an introverted temperament. He couldn't be impatient when it came to making friends. This was to avoid going overboard. She immediately said, "You go do what you need to do. I won't stay any longer." Sure enough, Luo Nan didn't urge her to stay. He nodded and thanked her once more. Then he hurriedly walked into the fire escape passageway. It looked like this was a very private call. Shuai Lei and Hu Huaying rode the elevator together to send Luo Nan off. Soon, peace was restored in the atrium. Luo Nan waited for the elevator to go up. He didn't turn on his wristband as he stood in the fire escape passageway. Instead, he squinted his eyes, and his telepathic thoughts leaped out. He arrived at a business hotel several dozen kilometers away. His temporary partner, Peony, had used the rubber band to give ink a special stimulation. Luo Nan sensed it. As for the reason, it was very simple. The meeting was adjourned. Luo Nan looked at his watch. It was around 6 o'clock in the evening. The meeting had been going on for nearly 9 hours. Peony walked into the elevator with ink still holding onto her shoulder. They looked quite compatible. But it was different from when they came. There was another person in the elevator. It was none other than Long 7. The two didn't have any intentions of communicating further. Long 7 was paying more attention to ink in the elevator. He exited the elevator and went to the underground parking lot. He walked straight to the front row of parking spaces. There was a supercar there. It wasn't low-key at all. Luo Nan vaguely remembered that this was where old Jean parked his car. Where did the man and the car go? Old Jin's commoner SUV drove in right when he was baffled. It flashed its lights twice and stopped in front of Peony at the elevator entrance. Clearly, he hadn't waited a day in vain. He had bought a Big Mac from who knows where, and he was eating it with relish. Peony let ink go to the front passenger seat while she sat in the back. Old Jean opened the window, dispersing the smell in the car. Then the car started, but he heard Long 7 call out at this time. "See you tomorrow." Peony waved her hand rather reservedly, and the car soon drove out of the underground parking lot. Only now did Peony get down to business. She spoke quickly, "The meeting will continue tomorrow. I will send the relevant information and meeting records to the internal cloud space. Please check and receive them." Luo Nan actually wanted to seriously ask about the situation at the meeting, but he thought of Zhang Yingying's previous attitude. He hesitated a bit, but in the end, he didn't say much. The car entered a state of silence. Now it was old Jin's turn to ask, "Where do I get off?" Luo Nan remembered that Peony seemed to be someone from Acumen College. It was impossible for this woman not to be suspicious when he got off the car with her. Since the firm couldn't hide his true identity, he might as well play it to the end. "I'll leave once we're out of the parking lot. Then see you tomorrow." No one exchanged pleasantries. They waited for the car to drive onto the main road, and Ink jumped out of the car. It spread its wings and flew into the night sky. At the same time, Luo Nan logged into the cloud space over at Gear. He looked through the meeting records. He had gotten the relevant documents from Trigate Corporation. This company did things fairly properly. At the very least, the meeting records were clean and clear. Peony even marked them one by one, highlighting the key points. Luo Nan really didn't know where she got the energy and time. Aside from the information, she even wrote a short report, introducing the situation of the participants. The focus of attention was naturally Long 7. Peony had already come to a preliminary conclusion, but the point of entry was that fashionable ear. In Peony's report, the earring was made from some sort of superplastic memory alloy material. It could greatly deform under high temperatures. It was a mechanical key favored by burners. In other words, Long 7 was very likely to be a deep blue walker. Plus, this person was relatively familiar with Xia City. He also had the special ability of radiation decontamination. Peony had already locked onto her target. Chapter 342. It had only been a few hours, and he had been skinned. Luo Nan grinned and looked at Peony's report in detail. The report simply indicated that Snake 7 had once appeared in the Society's operation to rescue Rui Wen. Of course, he was on the opposing side of the Society. Luo Nan didn't have a deep impression of this person. After all, 7 or 8 deep blue walkers had gathered that night, and there were many casualties. Only the heavens knew who was who. The only memory he had was a review report after the operation. There was this code name on it, representing that this person was deeply involved in the conflict. That was all. Right now, Luo Nan didn't have emotions like, so it was him. His attention was a bit distracted. Thinking deeper, there was no reason for this Snake 7 or Dragon 7 to not use similar methods when they returned. The focus of their analysis was certainly Peony, but as an eye-catching symbol, Ink, the giant crow, would most likely be used as a starting point. Could it be concealed? Ink was quite high profile that night, especially in the first half of the night. There were more than 1 or 2 eyewitnesses in the underground fighting arena. As Luo Nan furrowed his brows in thought, a refresh symbol appeared in the cloud space document. With a light tap, the entire document was updated. The amount of text instantly increased by quite a bit. Upon closer inspection, there was even more detailed information regarding Snake 7 listed out in the document. So Luo Nan knew that Snake 7 was a very talented ability user, but he was determined to become a deep blue walker. He joined Quantum Corporation of his own accord and became a special model tester at a young age. Later, he strongly requested to join the operation team and transferred to the Sky Blue Security Company. As for what his personality was like, how he handled things, and how his family relations were, they were all covered in the document. Luo Nan originally thought that this character was quite mysterious, but in the blink of an eye, he was exposed to the light of day. There was practically nowhere he could hide. Strands of cold air seeped through Luo Nan's teeth. His heart felt cold. He withdrew from the cloud space, his mind a bit chaotic. But one thing was very clear. With his current fame, special position, and use, every intelligence agency would absolutely not let him go. One small clue would reveal the general trend. From the perspective of Snake 7's fate, perhaps every intelligence agency had a document regarding him on their desks right now. They were constantly updated. Each and every one of his actions would be like snake sevens. He would be completely exposed to the eyes of others. There would be no more secrets to speak of. Luo Nan stood at the bottom of the atrium in a daze. A few dozen seconds later, his wristband vibrated. Shuai Lei called. I'm training in the open space in front of gear. Just give me a shout when you get home. Oh. Luo Nan responded subconsciously. Then he came back to his senses and expressed his refusal. It's already dinner time. You can go back. You don't need to wait for me. School had already ended. The reason Shuai Lei said this was because he understood Luo Nan's pace of life. Luo Nan's training time was around this time every day. He needed to attend classes and study, so he made up his mind to stick to it. It's so boring to go home alone. It's better to go together. Luo Nan spat, then we'll separate at the school gate. Right now Luo Nan was living at his aunt's house, while Shuai Lei was in the Twin River district. One went east, and the other went west. It would be strange if they went the same way. At the end of the day, Shuai Lei was still focused on being a bodyguard, afraid that shameless people like the headquarters would appear again. Shuai Lei also felt that it was quite ridiculous, so he asked, speaking of which, when are you going to be independent? You don't have to go to the hospital for treatment now. Auntie isn't afraid that I'll go for treatment. She's afraid that I'll suddenly go in for treatment again. Luo Nan knew that his health credit had gone bankrupt, and he was unable to explain the concept of the coupling of soul and flesh to Mrs. Luo Shuqing. He could only place his hopes on someone else. My cousin will be back next week. I'll give it another try with her attracting the firepower. The two chatted a bit more, and Shuai Lei went to practice boxing. Luo Nan was actually quite envious of Shuai Lei's current state. This week, with Xia Junping's help, Shuai Lei had already changed his relationship with the society. Shuai Lei had no worries in the future. Aside from being Luo Nan's bodyguard every day, Shuai Lei had a large amount of time to spend on martial cultivation. Compared to his close friend, Luo Nan's mood fluctuated quite a bit. Especially now, he was stimulated by the intelligence file. His heart was quite restless, and he didn't have the mind to think about practical matters. He paced a few steps under the atrium before raising his head. In a daze, the perfectly straight atrium and the ring-shaped night sky were like a prison, sealing him inside. No, that's not right. How could there be a prison in his mother's work? Luo Nan's thoughts changed when he thought of his mother. He looked at the atrium again. The structure was one and the same. It went from the bottom to the top, as if it led to the depths of the starry sky. It was limitless. When all was said and done, those thoughts just now were born from fear in his heart, drawing a prison. Luo Nan shook his head and scattered the illusions. He looked at the time. There were still a few minutes until the appointed time. He sat down cross-legged and recalled the breathing technique personally taught to him by Gym Master Xiu. He tried to calm his mind. Several breaths later, the tides of his mind did indeed calm down a bit. He even closed his eyes and began to move his mind. The energy within his body was polished, and the heart lantern of the eye's orifice burned with brilliance. Gradually, the distracting thoughts in his mind were burned to nothing. According to coupling theory, there were two relatively complete gears in the structure of Luo Nan's body and soul. One was soul strength, born from formatting theory. It had long since surpassed the limits of what the fleshly body could endure. Its power was great and difficult to control. Luo Nan relied on the hollow depository function of the external neuron to form a stable structure. Even so, it overflowed outwards at every moment. It was like an iceberg towering above the vast ocean. It was vast and majestic, and the pressure it exerted was extreme. Luo Nan gave it a name. It was called the God Gear. The other was the structure of the eye's orifice. Xiao Xinyu imparted a technique that relied on the natural wonders of the human body. It also happened to borrow Luo Nan's special circumstances to construct a brand new medium for transferring and refining soul strength. It formed the heart lantern of the eye's orifice and stimulated the potential of the human body. Luo Nan called it the body gear. According to Gym Master Xiao's words, the cultivation of the eye's orifice was only a beginning in the cultivation of the fleshly body. Compared to the towering iceberg and vast ocean of the god gear, the eye's orifice could only be described as a small reservoir. It played an auxiliary role. The god gear and the body gear built an embryonic order frame within Luo Nan's body. They meshed with each other through the method of coupling, influencing each other. Though the frame was formed, it was still simple and crude. It relied more on external objects. Without the suppression of the external neuron, it was guaranteed that Luo Nan would be instantly faced with a calamity. Even with the external neuron suppressing him, electricity and fire flowed between the god gear and the body gear. Their energies clashed, and several thunderclouds and storms swept through every day. It was hard for outsiders to understand the suffering within. It was precisely these dangers hidden deep within Luo Nan's body that left no leeway for trial and error. There were no sentiments to speak of. They forced Luo Nan to use the most focused attitude to carefully cultivate his foundation, to fix the fragile balance bit by bit. As long as he began to cultivate, all trivial and distracting thoughts would be annihilated into a puff of smoke. It was quite worthwhile to use them to dispel negative emotions. Luo Nan no longer had the concept of time once he entered the meditative state. Fortunately, Luo Nan remembered that he still had training classes to attend. He only did a bit of maintenance on the structure of the eye's orifice. He dissolved the overly powerful interference power of electricity and fire, and then he finished his homework. His senses were exceptionally sharp when he entered the meditative state. His mind was tranquil, and all the surrounding information entered his mind. He felt a marvelous sound seep into his ears. It was like the fine ticking of the minute and second hands of a clock. It rotated in circles, without beginning and without end. Luo Nan was not surprised at all. From his perspective, this was the breathing of gear. The building had 12 floors above and below the ground. Especially on the ground, including the atrium, there were 15 main halls. It was like a well-adjusted machine. Every part worked smoothly, and the teeth meshed together. Only then could there be such a harmonious rhythm. From Luo Nan's perspective, this was the sound of nature. It was the reward for his earnest cultivation. He subconsciously wore a smile on his face as he listened to this clear and orderly rhythm. However, just a few seconds later, there was a noise that made a sizzling sound. At first, it was just a single noise that suddenly affected the beat. But a few seconds later, the noise arose one after another. It was like the sudden insertion of dry and hoarse croaks during a band's performance. The noise rose and fell at random, turning a perfectly good performance into a nightmare. Luo Nan suddenly opened his eyes. The sound of nature was no longer there, but the noise still existed. It was layer upon layer of crisscrossing radio waves. The source came from every corner of the building. Cameras, bugs, optical cables, antennas. There were all sorts of forms. They gathered all sorts of information and transmitted it out. They were like pairs of cold and gloomy eyes, spying on Luo Nan's every move from every angle. It was like he was in a prison. Luo Nan raised his head. The darkness could not obstruct the strengthened vision of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Separated by the integrated glass, a certain burglar camera on the 3rd floor of the basement was pointed at him. It was done openly. There was more than one monitoring device working in the surroundings. Luo Nan pursed his lips. He wanted to get angry, but he inexplicably felt that this was absurd and ridiculous. The corner of his lips unconsciously curled up. He was just worried that Long Seven's misfortune would fall on his head. He never thought that his thoughts would become a prophecy. Hey, hee. What should come would come. Luo Nan squeezed out a dry voice from his mouth. The negative emotions that he had just dispelled were like a storm that suddenly descended. Rolling thunderclouds crackled as they assaulted his mind. Bang! The burglar camera on the third floor of the basement exploded into pieces. Similar shattering sounds rang out from every corner of the building at practically the same time. Of course, there was also the muffled sound of tripping brakes. Direct methods brought about crude consequences. The sparse lighting within the building of gear was instantly extinguished. Then the central control system operated spontaneously, activating the backup circuitry. But unfortunately, it failed. The listening devices were so concentrated that even the backup system was hard-pressed to escape. Luo Nan stood within the darkness, coldly feeling everything. But then Shuai Lei's phone call came in the next moment. He was so nervous that his voice changed. Report your location. Mentally connect. I'm fine. Luo Nan didn't know how to explain things to Shuai Lei. His wristband vibrated once more, and the central control system activated manual operation mode. It asked him if he wanted to use the maintenance robots to carry out emergency repairs. Luo Nan agreed in passing and found a reason: the quality of those people's work is abysmal. Yeah, that's it. And at this time, the hexier vibrated. On the psychic wave network, Bamboo Pole followed the teaching plan and went online on time to greet Luo Nan. This was the usual procedure, but today's message was a bit odd. Chapter 343. Luo Nan was stunned by the inexplicable message, but he soon connected it with the unforeseen event from before. How did he know? They're spying on me. Oh, I think they told me about it a few days ago. The direct logic aroused his anger, but a portion of his blurry memories became clear. The two sides collided, turning into a wave of meaningless emotional turmoil. Yes, Yuan had proposed to install monitoring and alarm equipment in gear at the beginning of the Xia City branch's testing. This was to deal with unusual situations. Luo Nan agreed at the time. Bamboo Pole was responsible for the installation, and he even integrated the control system into his wristband. This was great. When Bamboo Pole lost his temper, he didn't differentiate between friend and foe. He killed them all. Luo Nan wanted to leave a message in reply, but he didn't know what to say. He only said a few useless words after a while. It's nothing. Hee, if it's nothing then it's nothing. Are we still going to class today? Bamboo Pole's attitude really wasn't that of a qualified teacher. He had always been like this. The training courses arranged by Yuan had been going on for nearly a month now. Paper cuts, soul strength activation techniques had become extremely simple due to Luo Nan's achievements in coupling ability. He was the first to finish. Yuan's world order in and out of the psychic wave network had finished 2 days ago. Crag Burst and Red Fox's practical courses needed to be adjusted due to the changes in the situation, including Luo Nan's increase in ability. They had yet to officially begin. Only Bamboo Pole's Notes on the Most Important People of the World class was still progressing steadily. Emotional turmoil wasn't a reason to refuse class. Luo Nan replied, I'm on. Can we start now? No problem. Bamboo Pole immediately skipped over the unpleasant matters. As usual, he sent over a set of pictures of people, videos, and other image materials. He confirmed the main content of today's class, and then he activated the video call function. He raised his hand in greeting, and then he started chatting face-to-face with Luo Nan. Bamboo Pole was the only one who spoke most of the time. The content was probably, don't be fooled by his sanctimonious appearance. In fact, his lovers are all beautiful. Don't be surprised. This was Bamboo Pole's usual teaching method. It was known as teaching through fun. This bro was the most knowledgeable fellow Luo Nan had ever seen. He usually presented himself as a hacker, and he conveniently searched for all sorts of beautiful women. But he had deep attainments in religion, history, mystic arts, and so on. He was also a master paparazzi. His class was mainly about characters. He would only talk about 2 or 3 characters in each class, sometimes even just one. He would talk about official matters, trivial matters, news, gossip, and so on. There were many different levels and angles. Often, after a class, the characters he talked about would stand out and be hard to forget. But in terms of progress, it was really slow. Looking at the course plan, Yuan's course capacity was about the same as his. However, the former's course had already ended, and Bamboo Pole's 100 characters hadn't even talked about half of them. Bamboo Pole said bluntly, if you learn half of these courses, if you're really interested, you'll find out for yourself. Even if you don't want to learn, you'll learn it anyway. If you're really not interested, you can just treat it as idle chatter and have some fun. This way, the curriculum can be long or short, and it can be adjusted at any time. He knew very well that Luo Nan's mood wasn't right today, so his lecture was relatively simple. The content of the lecture didn't unfold. In the end, he even took the initiative to ask, why don't we stop here first? Luo Nan woke up from his absent-minded state. He knew that he wasn't paying attention. He was quite embarrassed, so he promptly apologized. Bamboo Pole responded with a beaming smile, no need to be so formal. Actually, I'm just an intelligence agent that serves the boss. I'm in charge of pushing information. If the boss has time, then I'll report a bit more information. If he doesn't have time, then I'll report a bit less. The boss has been quite busy lately, right? Luo Nan was helpless. The group of people who participated in the Frost River reality incident would call him boss every now and then. This was originally Red Fox's way of mocking him and Yuan, but it had grown louder and louder these days. The malice had been erased, and it had become a nickname that everyone knew. For a mischievous person like Bamboo Pole, he wouldn't feel comfortable if he didn't call him a few times a day. Luo Nan could only ignore him, but Bamboo Pole was right. Luo Nan had been courting death these past few days. He had found worker Zhai to be his tutor, learning the relevant knowledge of engineering. The amount of time and energy required to have some accomplishments in this major subject was far greater than a package of crash courses. However, his bad mood today had nothing to do with the pressure of learning. Right now, Luo Nan wasn't in the mood to attend classes. He really wanted to communicate with someone, but he didn't know where to start. He subconsciously flipped through the information on the person he had just obtained. This person's name and past deeds were all forgotten after a single glance. However, Bamboo Pole's habit of organizing the information from multiple angles and layers made Luo Nan make some associations. How many bugs were piled up in this information? The corner of Luo Nan's lips twitched. Does every famous person do research like this? Most of it is public information. Of course, a lot of it is the sweat and blood of paparazzi. Bamboo Pole raised an eyebrow. You're only average in this course. Otherwise, you could use it as a template. It wouldn't be a problem for you to become the #1 paparazzi in a large entertainment media company. Luo Nan suddenly had a strange thought. I can be considered a famous person now, right? To a certain extent, yes. Then, Brother Bamboo Pole, what kind of person am I? How do you research me? Luo Nan actually wanted to know just how much he had exposed to the various intelligence agencies. However, his ability to express himself was truly worrisome. It caused Bamboo Pole's understanding to be a bit off. Yo, you feel confused about life. You want to do a self-analysis. I. Luo Nan wanted to correct Bamboo Pole, but he had second thoughts. Zhang Yingying's words had made his mind restless before he came to gear. His terrible mood had been buried ever since then. It would be good if he could get to the bottom of it. You can say that. On the other side of the screen, Bamboo Pole sat on an ergonomic chair. He adjusted himself into a comfortable position. I've mentioned the method of researching people to you before. It's nothing more than the three aspects of nature, society, and psychology. Luo Nan nodded. It was true that he had learned this before, but it was quite complicated when he actually began to delve into it. Bamboo Pole chuckled. You asked in a hurry. I wasn't prepared. However, since you asked, let's treat this matter as material. Let's do a simple analysis. Okay. Luo Nan was indifferent. Let's first talk about your problem. A normal person, a person of society, has an instinctive mentality of privacy and a mentality of vigilance. People pay attention to other people's evaluations of themselves, but they very rarely take the initiative to ask others to judge them. Unless they want to show off, or they lack self-confidence. This is the meaning of asking for guidance. And all of these are considered morbid. Luo Nan grunted and couldn't help but laugh. Let's just ask for guidance. It looks like the symptoms are a bit lighter. Bamboo Pole shook his head. There's no need to ask me. Ask yourself. Ask yourself right now. Ask yourself. How is your body's condition under natural conditions? Is it vigorous like a dragon or fierce like a tiger? Or do you have a hidden illness? Be frank. Your body hasn't completely recovered yet. Luo Nan couldn't do without the external neuron right now. The difference in scale between the God gear and the body gear was a stubborn illness. This was especially true for the uncontrollable growth of his mental strength. He still had no clue as to how to solve this problem. Fortunately, the number of human-faced arachnids that wandered through Xia City was gradually decreasing. Otherwise, Luo Nan might really explode if the wraith sign of the Blood Flame Order doubled in hunting speed. He had learned the acupoint cultivation technique from Gym Master Xiao, but he was unable to digest it on a large scale. Bamboo Pole didn't ask further. He changed the angle. What's your situation like in terms of social conditions? This time, Luo Nan didn't hesitate. He answered, not good. Although he had the Xia City branch behind him and quite a few friends, Headquarters, Quantum Corporation, the Order of Justice, and the Blood Flame Order were all latent threats. If all of them were to explode, even 10 Luo Nans would turn to dust. In terms of psychological conditions, forget it. It's obvious. Bamboo Pole smacked his lips. There's a situation in all three major areas. The answer doesn't need to be said. Brother, to tell you the truth, the problem is heavy. Luo Nan didn't expect that this would be the result after a bit of analysis based on Bamboo Pole's template. Wasn't this completely warped? He forgot about the matter of the intelligence organization for a moment. He stared blankly for a moment before asking, how should I solve it? Bamboo Pole spread his hands. You want me to be your advisor? How can I be counted on to do something that even secretary he can't do? Luo Nan knew this, but he still wanted to ask, Brother Bamboo Pole, if you were in my position, what would you do? If I were you, I would turn around and leave. I would run as far as I could. I would hide as deep as I could. This is what they call a cicada shedding its carapace. Retreat in order to advance. Turn light into darkness. Forget it. I know you wouldn't do this. Just treat it like I'm talking nonsense. Bamboo Pole's mind was clear-headed from beginning to end. He sighed. How about this? I'll give you 2 examples for reference. I've talked about the first one before. Her Majesty Empress Wu. At the very beginning, when Her Majesty Empress Wu just made her debut, many people said that she was Wu Mainyang, that she amused people with her beauty. They said she was Wu Jiaoyi, Empress Wu. They called Her Majesty Empress Wu all the way to Her Majesty Empress Wu, but she remained unmoved. It could be said that a rock doesn't turn in a flowing river. She's round on the outside but square on the inside. Round on the outside but square on the inside. Luo Nan instinctively felt that these words weren't right. Bamboo Pole insisted on his own opinion. Did you forget? I told you before. Her Majesty Empress Wu is very domineering, but she was able to maneuver freely in the past. Her methods were extraordinary. First, she borrowed President Ouyang's power, then she became independent and established the hidden indigo firm. She recruited non-combatants. She never kept a low profile, but she never crossed the line. She has a multitude of talented people under her command. It's not like she didn't have enemies in Xia City before, including headquarters. Now, she has either pacified them or swept them flat. No matter what the wind and waves are like, she remains unmoved. She steadily strengthens, finally becoming a great power. It's said that her actions are like heaven, and her people are like ghosts. She deeply understands the true essence of techniques, and power. Bamboo Pole was not stingy with his words of praise for Her Majesty Empress Wu. He was endless. This type of person who is as unmoving as a mountain can be said to be the path of an emperor. Some people think that the words Her Majesty Empress Wu are mocking, but I feel that it's quite appropriate. In my personal opinion, this is the most brilliant path. Luo Nan imagined Her Majesty Empress Wu's methods of maneuvering freely. He was fascinated for a time. This path is very difficult, right? Bamboo Pole laughed. She has a clear goal from the beginning. Her methods are incisive. She uses both the carrot and the stick. You can't learn it. It's too late for you to learn it. Luo Nan was speechless. I used this as an example to give you a benchmark. I used it as a reference. Let's talk about the second example. I haven't talked about it before, but you're certainly familiar with this person. She's your secretary. Chapter 344. Through the psychic wave network, Bamboo Pole looked straight at him and grinned. I won't say much about other things, but since you've attended both my class and Secretary He's class, don't you have any thoughts? Probably. Luo Nan's heart wasn't as hesitant as his mouth was. After all, He Yuan and Bamboo Pole were both teaching cultural classes, and their styles were completely different. In private, he couldn't help but make some comparisons. Bamboo Pole encouraged, Tell me. There was no need to say much about Bamboo Pole's teaching methods. As for He Yuan, Luo Nan thought for a bit and said, Sister Yuan teaches. All sorts of information is readily available at her fingertips. She covers a wide range of details, and the context is clear. She is very captivating. What else? His arguments are precise, and his words are eloquent. Furthermore, they are often sharp and penetrating to the bone. Most of the time, he points directly at the deeper business behind important events. The relationship between the secular world and the inner world, the traditional political structure and the new powers of ability users, is clearly understood. Bamboo Pole's eyebrows twitched. What you've just said, I think I've done pretty well. Of course, I can forget about the righteous promise part. But don't just praise me, do you think I don't have any flaws? Or is it something different from me? He saw that Luo Nan was a bit hesitant, so he urged Luo Nan with all his might, Relax. I won't blabber. Plus, even if I say it, people will be open-minded. They won't care. I don't know what's missing. In the end, Luo Nan was an honest child. He didn't want to gossip behind Luo Nan's back. He pondered for a while before saying, "I'm different from you. The knowledge points in class are more concentrated, and the pace is much faster than yours." Bamboo Pole laughed heartily and clapped his hands. "That's right." Ha! Luo Nan didn't understand what was so funny about this. Bamboo Pole reminded him further, "Isn't the timetable he arranged for you for the same reason? From morning till night, you followed him closely." It's all right. It's not particularly tight. Besides, if I don't do this, how can I quickly grasp knowledge? Of course you think it's normal, because you and she are the same kind of person. They're all like a taut bow. When they shoot out an arrow, it's sharp and indestructible. But what about during normal times? Luo Nan was slightly stunned. This was the first time he had heard someone place him on the same level as He Yueyin. Bamboo Pole continued, "No one in the branch can keep up with Secretary He's fast pace. It's as if there's a beast chasing after her." Ever since she had joined, she had assisted in the affairs of the branch and drawn up various systems. Of course, it was good, but it was a loose association, and they weren't in a state of war. Who could persevere every day? Out of 100 people, 10 are used to it, 10 are persevering, 50 are slackers, and 30 are dragging us down. Before we can face the external enemies, we will collapse internally. Luo Nan seriously suspected that Bamboo Pole had seized the opportunity to ridicule him. As a hacker, this guy was naturally skeptical of all constraints. He was a standard anarchist, and he never hid this when he taught. But Luo Nan really admired one thing about Bamboo Pole. Ridicule was ridicule, but Bamboo Pole and He Yueyin were the best partners in these operations. Their tacit understanding was the highest. We are talking about an example. Bamboo Pole adjusted his posture on the ergonomic chair and said helplessly, "In a sense, people like Secretary He are very self-centered. Don't doubt me, I'm talking about you. Unconsciously or unconsciously, you always think that the earth will rotate according to your rhythm." Luo Nan, who was self-centered, could only listen. "Let's not talk about it. Secretary He is actually a great person. She has a bit of a messiah mentality. She always feels that her way of doing things is good for everyone. She has a sense of responsibility for all living beings under the heavens. Perhaps with her family background, she really does know more secrets, dangers, and unspeakable difficulties than we do. But for a hopeless fellow like me, she's a bit boring. I can't raise any interest in pursuing her." Bamboo Pole's eyes slanted as he spoke to this point. "What about you?" The silence lasted for a moment. Luo Nan was baffled. "Why aren't you talking?" Bamboo Pole spread his hands. "I'm asking you. You're much more autistic than Secretary He, and her goals are clearer than yours. Her techniques are more superb, and her mind is clearer. She knows her own shortcomings, and she is constantly improving. But you're different. You're only 16 years old, right? You're underage, immature, and your temperament isn't set. You have a head full of bizarre thoughts. Don't say it out loud. Isn't it tiring to use your brain to guess?" Luo Nan's lips twitched. This wasn't the first time he had heard such an evaluation, but it was rare for Bamboo Pole to use an example as a foil. Luo Nan felt a bit sorry for He Yueyin. Just as he was about to speak, Bamboo Pole raised his hand. "There's no need to say things like justifying formatting theory and protecting my mother's work." Then what else was there to say? Luo Nan choked in an instant. Bamboo Pole stared at him for a long time before sighing. "You don't have any other goals?" Luo Nan imitated him and spread his hands. "Just these aren't enough. What else do you want?" Bamboo Pole sighed once more. "Isn't this enough?" "Ha! What's there to dissect? You've said a long string, but the conclusion is already very clear. You and Secretary he are the same kind of people. You both live your days with your bowstring stretched taut. Your goals are the source of your pressure. This is because those things are very hard to deal with. They are very hard to achieve. Luo Nan didn't like hearing these words. It's very hard to achieve. As long as it involves confrontation, it's very hard. Bamboo Pole took care of Luo Nan's mood. He erased a key phrase and highlighted another. Who are the people standing against you? If the disparity is too great, the harder you work, the greater the pressure. Unless you possess the ability to flatten everything, or at the very least, you have the ability to make most people compromise. Just like Her Majesty Empress Wu. Luo Nan was silent. Even Her Majesty Empress Wu rarely directly confronts a certain colossus. For her, growing and strengthening is her number one priority. She takes the initiative. She prioritizes things. She has to do things step by step. It doesn't matter if she takes a few detours. Secretary He's route is very clear. It's to integrate the society's stragglers and stragglers. Perhaps her methods are worth discussing, but she has a strong backbone. She has many resources, and her selfishness is even less. What about you? You charge your way towards your goal. You flatten all the traps and mechanisms. Fortunately, you're a stubborn piece of iron. You'll treat ordinary checkpoints as hammering blows. If it were someone else, they would have long since been smashed into meat paste. But in the future, will Quantum Corporation, the Order of Justice, and those people from headquarters continue to hammer you? Or will they set up a blast furnace and melt you in one breath? Luo Nan's eyelids twitched. This was the situation he was worried about. However, Bamboo Pole's words seemed to have deviated once more. He was no longer simply analyzing Luo Nan. Luo Nan was still uncertain, so he followed along with Bamboo Pole's tone and asked, "Then Brother Bamboo Pole, what do you think I should do next?" Only when the words left his mouth did Luo Nan remember that he had asked Bamboo Pole for guidance not too long ago. Back then, Bamboo Pole had refused, and Her Majesty Empress Wu and He Yuan were two examples. Sure enough, Bamboo Pole extended a hand and pointed at him. "You're asking me this again. What's the point of asking me? I dare to bet that with your temper, no matter what extravagant flowery words other people say, you'll still follow your temper when things come to a head. Flatten. Whether it's a hammer or a blast furnace in front of you, there's no difference." Luo Nan really didn't have much hope in his control. There was just one point where he admitted that Bamboo Pole was wrong. "I don't want to play with flatten. Who wouldn't be happy if they could reach their goal more easily? But when things come to a head, I have no choice." Then how do you get yourself to the point where things come to a head time and time again? Luo Nan really did consider this question seriously for a moment. Since when did he always fall into a situation where there was no way out? He didn't obtain an answer, but there was one thing that was very clear. If these days continued, the times where things came to a head would grow more and more frequent. The opportunities for him to make choices would grow smaller and smaller until there were none. Bamboo Pole looked at Luo Nan's expression and could roughly understand Luo Nan's current bewilderment. "So, I'll still say the same thing. If I were you, I would certainly run as far as I can. It's not because of fear or cowardice. It's because you have enough space to act as a buffer. Only then can you grow and strengthen. Only then can you have the leeway to choose. That's impossible." Luo Nan didn't even need to think before he refused. Bamboo Pole had expected this long ago. His eyes didn't even blink as he immediately said, "Then you need a shield and a rein. The shield will give you a chance to catch your breath on the battlefield. The rein will strangle your neck when you're hot-headed. Luo Nan blinked his eyes. Brother Bamboo Pole, you can speak a bit more bluntly. Bamboo Pole rolled his eyes. I've already spoken bluntly enough. Fine. What I mean is that you need to find a backer. Backer? Rely on who? Bamboo Pole looked at him like he was looking at an idiot. Who in Xia City can you rely on right now? President Ouyang. Get lost, you idiot. Luo Nan grunted. He felt quite wronged. There were only two extraordinaries who could protect him in Xia City. What was wrong with him thinking of Ouyang Qin in the first instance? Luo Nan's thoughts spun again. Only then did he realize that the example that Bamboo Pole spared no effort in talking was absolutely not just for show. You want me to rely on Her Majesty Empress Wu? Luo Nan knew that he had finally guessed correctly when he saw Bamboo Pole's expression. However, he didn't quite understand Bamboo Pole's train of thought. What's the difference between President Ouyang and Her Majesty Empress Wu? Also, aren't I under their protection right now? The Xia City branch taking care of you is official business. Since it's official business, it will be restricted by procedures. Accordingly, there will certainly be flaws. The matter with headquarters is the best proof. The same reasoning can be used on President Ouyang. Who let him be the president? Bamboo Pole used his finger to point at Luo Nan from afar. More importantly, in a loose organization like the society, there's no one who can control you. You can do stupid things, and there's no way to restrain you. He Yuan is quite suitable, but she's standing in the wrong position from the start. She's the boss's secretary and the like. It's so awkward. Luo Nan was a bit embarrassed. Brother Bamboo Pole, you're an anarchist. Everything you say is controlled. Is that really good? At the very least, I never cause trouble. Bamboo Pole stabbed a knife into Luo Nan's chest and twisted it. I rarely do stupid things. Even so, I sometimes find a place to rest and earn a bit of extra money. Ha! Idiot. I'm a lobbyist right now, Boss Luo. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.